things Westeros, and maybe occasionally Essos, Sothorios, and even Ulthos, because that's how we do it. But today, we're here to talk about all things Cersei, Jaime, and a little RLJ. So, talking about why some of my RLJ takes need updating, as a matter of fact. We're going to talk about some Cersei and Rhaegar stuff. The mystery of how Cersei got Jaime named to the Kingsguard. That is a very interesting mystery I came up with in last week's Jaime video. Thanks for watching. We're going to talk about, was Cersei plotting to steal Jaime's inheritance by getting him named to the Kingsguard? It's got some Jacob and Esau parallels. We're going to talk about the Praetorian Guard. We're going to talk about, we're going to take Discord questions, Bad King Aerys. And here we are at the top of the high tower where I live. Hey everyone, let's go ahead and bring y'all in. It's the chat, it's the outline, and oh yes, GreyWasteTim. Oh my goodness, GreyWasteTim. What is this? Mm-hmm. Are you a raider of the Grey Waste by chance?
Yes, and while you're at the top of the high tower, I am down at the bottom. I am down at the Black Stone. But I'm ready to come up and meet you.
Well, we'll see about that, Tim. We'll see if you get to come up the stairway or not. I do control the elevators here in the high tower. Yes. No, thank you, Tim, for joining me. Obviously, we are here to, well, it's like I said, it's a little bit of a new format that we're doing to allow me to sort of tackle a few different topics in one stream instead of always having to pick one thing out. And, you know, it's been 15 years since we got a book, so it's trying to mix it up a little bit. Tim, how you been, man? How you doing?
I'm good, but this mask, this is to symbolize that I have been muzzled for this stream. Just so the audience knows, I've been told that I use too much foul language and was asked ahead of time to clean myself up. So I am muzzled this stream. No, we're good. We're good.
You're like the free speech protesters with like tape over your mouth, kind of.
Yeah, something I put there myself.
Well, Tim, we do appreciate you keeping it real, as I mentioned on our phone call.
Yeah. And yeah, we're going to be talking about the Praetorian Guard. However, I do not have a Roman Legionnaire hat. That unfortunately is not in my arsenal of t-shirts and props. So Lame. We're going with the Viking horns. We're going to be talking, because we, of course, will be talking about Gaius Germanicus, otherwise known as Caligula.
Yeah, you're not that muzzled, Tim. I asked you to say a couple of words about the Praetorian Guard. What I got back is a whole YouTube script presentation. Mm-hmm. But no, in all seriousness, Tim brings it. When I asked Tim to be a guest on our channel, he doesn't just roll in out of bed, wiping his, like, whoa, what's going on? No, Tim comes prepared, and he did. And so we've got a whole outline. We've got the Tim outline. We got the Tim notes. The Glenn Ross leads, the Tim leads, the David Lightbringer leads. Those are good leads. And so, yeah, I know he was quoting Mean Girls. It doesn't.
He was just quoting.
I know.
Thank you.
Very well. Everyone laughed. It was funny. We weren't debating about whether or not Tim is funny. Tim is very funny. He's dynamo. What's my volume isn't high enough? I know I got rid of the weird chorus effect finally. I got to the bottom of that. You guys let me... Okay, yeah, I was a little quiet. Tim was always coming through nice and strong. So, how's that, guys? How's that? And please do tell me if even the slightest thing sounds off. My standards are very high, and I'm very disappointed when anything is substandard. So, all right. Yes, we're good. Last week, it was still not right. And so, yeah. These are the things that we're going to cover. I mentioned all this in the intro, but basically that's what we're talking about. It's a bunch of stuff related to Cersei and Jaime and the Mad King, some of the history that George is drawing on, when it's okay to kill the king and stuff like that. But the first thing I want to talk about was RLJ. And let me silence my phone real quick. I'm a bad guest. Oh, it's my producer saying the sound is good. Okay, so let me just put this on vibrate. And producer, manager. It's Maynard James Plum, guys. It's the same person. Don't get any fancy ideas. All right, perfect. Okie doke. And so, let's see here. Yes, RLJ. So first I want to give a shout out to the YouTube channel You Zahua. And I might be saying that wrong, but her channel's good. And I will just copy the link and drop it in the chat here. And she made a video about RLJ. It's called Jon Snow's Parents Are Bums, which made me chuckle. And this was actually shared with me by someone in the Discord. I should have copied down the name and I didn't. But basically it's an argument critical of the Rhaegar and Lyanna story, I would say. It's not even just critical of Rhaegar, but more like the whole story. And basically what I'm here to say is that in the past, and I'll just say this to you, Tim, I think I have focused with RLJ, I have mostly focused on like the symbolism, ice and fire, crown of roses, lunar, sun and moon, Knight's Queen parallels, is Jon Azor high, all that fun stuff, right? And I think that at times I think I have glossed over, let's say, or not given enough attention to the problems with the relationship as presented. I think some of this is because, and I would like to correct that today, I would like to bring my RLJ take in line with some of my other takes about right and wrong in the story, so to speak. And so I guess what I'm saying is like, I think, Tim, some of this is George not being good at writing age-appropriate characters. It's not just with Lyanna. We see this with lots of characters, 9-year-old, 13-year-old, 15-year-old. How are they supposed to act? I'm not even saying I could do it better. But, as a 60, 70-year-old person, it's possible, you know what I mean? There's a little bit of blindness there. We also lost the 5-year gap. So now we're got a bunch of kids basically saving the world and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. And that is one of the criticisms we can give to George is just doesn't seem to be able to write kids. Like the Stark kids seem way, way older than they're supposed to be. They're very precocious for their age. Rickon is saying and doing much more than you would expect from a 3-year-old, right? And yes. Part of that is George being like just not being able to write kids. There is, of course, the idea that, well, kids in a medieval time period grew up quicker. Like the idea of being a teenager, the idea of adolescence is more of a modern thing. And then, of course, we also have the show kind of where, for obvious reasons, some characters were aged up. You can't depict Daenerys as 13 years old being married off to Khal Drogo and everything that happens there. Even if you are on HBO, some things need to be aged up for purposes. But then that also plays in our mind, because some of us, I know at least for me, when I'm reading these books, in my mind's eye, when I see like Daenerys, I'm seeing like show Daenerys. I'm seeing show Ned. Like they have an effect on how we perceive these characters.
Yeah, and I think to your point, it made sense on the TV show when they took mostly the same plot. Obviously there's differences, but they take these plots from Ice and Fire, adapt them to TV, age up the characters by 2 or 3 years, and it works fine because in general, like you say, George's kids are acting a little bit more adult. Like when I talked about Lyanna and her being written to have agency, she is written to have a lot of agency. Probably more than a 14 or 15-year-old would have, honestly. Like she comes across more like a Marjorie Tyrell, somebody who's 17, 18, or 19. But the mistake that I have made that I want to address is that I think I have mentally just sort of changed the age in my head and said, well, George is meaning to write Rhaegar and Lyanna as some sort of love story, so we should treat it like a love story. But there's a problem with that. A 22-year-old and a 15-year-old cannot really meaningfully be in love. Like that's not in any times. Like that's just a 15-year-old is not capable of having an adult relationship with a 22-year-old. And so like I have a video called R+L J, a love story. I'm actually going to take that video down. I don't feel like I covered the whole thing appropriately in that video. And like I said, I don't think it's appropriate to call it a love story, even though George is meaning to write it that way. Like, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that is where I came in with when we were talking about this. And I said, well, it's George's take on Romeo and Juliet. But when you go and look at Romeo and Juliet, what were their ages? Juliet is her age is given. She is 13. It is stated she is 2 weeks away from her 14th birthday. Romeo's age is never given, but we go based off of context clues, and most historians and literary analysis place Romeo's age somewhere between 16 and 19. So, let's cut in the middle. Let's just say he's 17. So we got a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old running around. They know each other for like 2 days, and their little tryst ends up with the death of 5 people. And this is George playing with those same story beats when he gives us Rhaegar and Lyanna.
Yeah, and so one point, I definitely think that this is a major thing that George is commenting on. The thing is that there's a little difference between 16, 17, and 22. And so that is one thing I think that, like, is a little weird. We keep seeing this sort of pairing, like with Daemon and Rhaenyra. That one is more obviously predatory. But Rhaegar and Lyanna is not really painted that. I mean, it's painted that way by Robert, certainly. But we keep getting these clues that actually, it's like, I just like, what is Rhaegar doing? And this is one of the points that the video that was raising in the video. It's like, what is Rhaegar doing falling in love with a 15-year-old?
Yeah. And on the other end, what is Lyanna doing? Like, oh, Robert will never keep to one bed. He already has one bastard. But then you fall in love with a married man who already has 2 children of his own. So if we talk about Lyanna and agency, if we're going to talk girl bosses, we also got to talk girl failures. And that is a big girl failure on her part.
Yeah, and so, we're all looking forward to seeing what the Harrenhal play this summer is going to tell us about all of this. But I think I was thinking this through, and I was like, there's not really a good answer. Like, there's no answer that's going to make everything okay. Not that I've ever said that Rhaegar is okay for doing what he did. However, like, there's not an answer that just, like I said, that even if it's a prophecy thing, like, imagine you're Rhaegar, okay? You're 22, you're concerned about your father and the Mad King and stuff, and you're trying to discern prophecy, and you think that you've had this dream, or whatever it is, that means, oh, I gotta go knock up this 15-year-old. Like, wouldn't you hesitate and go, maybe I interpreted that wrong?
One would hope, right? One would hope. But Rhaegar's problem is that he put prophecy before everything, and this has become my greatest criticism. So another behind the scenes thing is, before we had this talk, Dave texted me, asked, "You're a bit of a Rhaegar hater, aren't you?" And I'm like, well, you're kind of taking it out of context, but whatever, if that's how you want to frame it. And you know what? On retrospect, yeah, I guess I am. If Rhaegar has no haters, then I am dead. Because Rhaegar, to me, what Rhaegar's problem was is that he put prophecy above what was important. The tourney at Harrenhal is meant to be gathering all of the lords in one place, trying to put Rhaegar up as this ideal, benevolent king to kind of ease people into the idea of, we need to get my dad to abdicate, but don't worry, I'm not my dad. I'm going to be better. And that's why, like, I always think of, like, when Barristan has thoughts of, if I had defeated Rhaegar at the tourney, most likely the Kingsguard are taking dives to make Rhaegar look better. This is all meant to, like, again, ease everyone into this, to make it more of a natural transition of a bloodless coup. Get my dad to abdicate, get him to, he'll go retire, we'll go put him off on a nice little home on Dragonstone where he can do whatever he wants and I'll be in charge. But then he sees Lyanna and prophecy takes over. And it's the opposite, I said, of what Stannis' realization. Stannis comes to the realization of, I need to save the kingdom to win the throne. For Rhaegar, it's like, no, man, you needed to win the throne before saving the kingdom. Like, securing the throne was the more important thing at that moment. Yeah,
well, so you look at it like, if you look at the Wheel of Time, Rand is the dragon, And he, towards the end of the story, very general spoiler alert, he's got to manage both fulfilling magical prophecies and worrying about the magical enemies, but also consolidating all the kingdoms of man so that they're prepared to fight this great last battle. It's like Armageddon, essentially. And Rhaegar is in a similar situation in that he's both trying to fulfill prophecy and manage the situation with his dad. And he really just doesn't seem to have done any kind of a good job balancing the two things. Because as you say, the entire tourney of Harrenhal is constructed as this political theater. And it's all set up. And people are potentially taking dives so he can win the tourney and look great. And then what does he do? He rides past his wife and he gives a 15-year-old girl the crown of flowers. And it's just like...
Yeah. Prophecy came before what truly mattered.
It's a very mysterious thing. And that's why I say we're all waiting to hear what the Harrenhal play tells us about this. But, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is like, I'm not sure what George is trying to write here. I may have been doing too much work trying to make it work in my head and thereby glossing over some of the problems with it. It could be that this is intended as a criticism, like, oh, people trying to fulfill prophecy, they do all this weird stuff, Yeah.
And that comes back. So to your question, like, don't you think maybe you should think this over, like, have you really thought this through? My critique, this is just, again, my opinion, my critique of Rhaegar is, no, he didn't always think it through, and he was so sure that this was going to happen in his favor. And that's why when he has his final talk with Jaime, when Jaime's remembering, it's like, oh, there will be much to do when I come back. That's the thing. He doesn't even conceive of the notion that he might not come back from the Trident. He is so sure that things are going to work in his favor, that Robert Baratheon is just a slight roadblock on his way to this. Just move it out of the way and we'll be fine. But it's like, but no, that wasn't it, right? He died. He never came back. He died on the Trident.
It's obviously it's a bit like Ned telling Jon, "Oh, I'll tell you who your dad is when I come back, or your mother is when I come back from King's Landing." But to your point, that's why that's how I parody Rhaegar. Like my fake Rhaegar character, he's hyper confident. He's always like he never thinks about consequences. You know what I mean? He poo-poos everything, and he thinks everything's going to work out because, that is sort of the humorous angle on the character. But anyway, I just wanted to recommend the video. I think it was really funny. She's a good YouTuber, and she made a strong argument, and it changed the way I thought about it a little bit. So I just wanted to round out that perspective and say that, Rhaegar is problematic. Like there's, and again, not that I've ever said he wasn't, but I just do want to clearly say that, like, I think that it's mostly George should have written Lyanna to be 17 or something like that, and he wrote her a little too young. But it is what it is in the book. And also, 1 second, R+L Tim, one last thing. I want to differentiate between getting pregnant and getting married. In medieval times, quote unquote, yes, teenagers often did get betrothed and married, but 16-year-olds weren't getting pregnant all the time. Like it wasn't common at all among nobles or commoners. Like people understood that was a risk when a 16-year-old girl gives birth, that her body's not done developing, and that like there's high rates of infant mortality and the mother dying. So like I don't know if I feel like George might have a slightly slanted opinion somehow or view of like how common that was, because he really does depict it a lot with these teenagers giving birth, and it really wasn't common. And so that's the whole thing. It's like, the Starks were betrothing Lyanna to Robert. People are getting married at that age. But it's like Rhaegar ran off with her and got her pregnant at 15. And then she died giving birth.
At 16. So she's 16 when she dies,
So
and
like,
Rhaegar,
how would you feel if some 22-year-old got your 15-year-old sister pregnant at 15 and then she died giving birth? You'd be pissed, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. And I said, like, I think George does this with a lot of characters. Like, I'm 37 years old. I'm constantly having to remind myself that Ned and Stannis, guys like that, are younger than me. So, think again, like, I'll use Stannis as an example again. Stannis who holds Storm's End during Robert's Rebellion. The Stannis who raises Davos up to Lord and cuts his fingers off. 18 years old. 7 years later, the Greyjoy Rebellion. Stannis Baratheon, who wins at the Straits of Fair Isle, the one who takes Old Wick, the one who opens up the pathway for Robert to storm Pike. 25. How many wars did you win at age 25, right? It reminds me, it's the meme of like the shonen anime protagonist. Like, you're 15 years old and you haven't saved the world once. What are you doing with your life? Like, these are very young people doing very big things.
Someone said, no one impregnates my family members without asking me first. Yeah, no, that's funny, but obviously you get my point.
Oh yeah, the Stannis was born. Yeah, so the idea that Stannis was just born a curmudgeon old man.
Yeah, that is crazy to think about, Robert. But that's why I was pointing out Jaime. He was 17 when he slew Ares. It's easy to just mentally take the same character and put him in that scene, but like, no, he was 17 years old. Mm-hmm. So, Tyrion to Cersei, what would you have offered? I don't know what scene you're quoting there. I feel like you're quoting a scene. Do you know what scene they're talking about?
No, because first you also got to differentiate. Is this a book or a show quote? I need more context on this one.
Need more context. Thank you for the super chat.
Is this when Tyrion is making like his fake betrothals for Myrcella? Remember, like, he told Littlefinger one, Varys another, and Pycelle a third, and that was how he figured out who's been, snitching on him? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm not sure. And yeah, I do. So yeah, I'm seeing in the chat, a lot of people definitely do that, where like they kind of mentally age the character into how it seems to them as opposed to what it said necessarily. And sometimes it is easy to forget. And so that's kind of what I'm pointing out. Like, he wrote her to be 15 basically at the tourney or when they ran away. So we'll have to see again what he reveals to us and how much he's going to end up critiquing Rhaegar in the end, or if Rhaegar is just going to turn out to be this guy. He tried his best, and he meant well. I'm not sure.
And the other thing, because the other thing George does, and this probably also is him also making commentary on the gender roles, is we know when a boy is considered a man in Westeros. It's at age 16. That's why Aegon III's regency ends on his 16th name day. At 16, you are now considered a man. You are considered an adult. But for women, it seems to be, well, it's whenever you hit puberty, whenever you have your first period, now you're a woman. And biologically, that could mean anywhere between like 11, 14 years old. Who knows? It varies. It all depends.
Well, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, I think part of it is George being bad at ages. Part of it is that he's meaning to critique medieval society and just society in general with the way people use their children as pawns and things like that. There's certainly a heavy critique of that. There's a heavy critique of violence against women, using women as sex objects, or not sex objects, but like, just mothers, basically people to have children and little else. He's critiquing all of that. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that, like, again, makes Rhaegar sound like he's a good guy and he was in love and he was just trying his best. And so, yeah, I just wanted to round it out with that other perspective and also recommend the video. And so with that said, we could probably move on. There is a good question from Harangan Mind here. Is it possible Arthur Dayne, Rhaegar, Lyanna, Ned, and Howland Reed were all in on the night of the Laughing Tree stunt? What if it wasn't just one or two, but all of them who made it happen? Well, I do like to entertain the idea of there being some teamwork going on at Harrenhal. And I always point out that Arthur Dayne was with Rhaegar when he rode off with Lyanna, and so was Went. Not Hightower, but Dayne and Went were with him. And Rhaegar was gone for like a year. So whenever they went to the Isle of Faces with Lyanna, Arthur Dayne and Went would have been there. Maybe not on the isle itself. Maybe they waited on the shore. But they're all together at this time. So definitely there could be stuff like this going on. I don't know if Ned or Brandon would have been okay with their sister jousting.
Yeah. I guess the question there is, so this would have, in order for the introductions to be made, this would have to have happened after Ned danced with Ashara Dane, because how else would they come to know Arthur and Rhaegar? It would have to be through introductions made by Ashara Dane. So, does the Night of the Laughing Tree happen after the Night of Dancing?
It's I think yes.
Okay, so yeah, so then it's plausible because then Ashara Dane is your link. Ashara Dane would be the one to introduce Ned and his family to her brother, and then of that of course means and then her brother being the Kingsguard, that means now maybe you meet the prince too. And this is how everyone kind of like meets and shakes hands, I guess.
Yeah, and George he really likes to imply that like, hold on, we don't know what was going on in the tents at the tourney of Harrenhal. So like, yeah, there's definitely some secret skullduggery and things going on in the tents. And yeah, maybe Lyanna did get Ned and Brandon on board. And maybe they did. Maybe they did help them. So I will say that Estella Graves, who's going to be our guest again next week, she is going over to the UK to watch the play in person. So we'll get a firsthand report from her at some point after she gets back from that. And I'll certainly be talking about it as soon as we find out any new info.
Yeah. Whereas next Sunday, I will be at the Sing Us Home Music Festival down in Philly, so I will not be here. I will be in the pit.
But if you're at that music festival in the pit, you can look for Tim. You find him up front in the pit. That's where he'll be. And so this is another YouTube channel I want to give a shout out. They were in the comments of my Jaime video, and I checked out their channel. And they have a cool video about the history that George drew from to create the Red Wedding. The channel is called Maesters and Monarchs. And they're a small channel, just got a few subs, so help them out. You guys know how much that means when you're starting out. But they got some good videos on there, so check them out. And thanks for watching my channel, Maesters and Monarchs. And there you go. So I always like anybody that's talking about the history and stuff that George is drawing from. Obviously, I know you guys do too. So yeah, check that one out.
Oh, the so maybe Rhaegar visited the Isle. Okay, so that actually, because we know that Howland Reed had been to the Isle of Faces. So if these introductions are made and Rhaegar sees little Howland Reed, he's like, wait a minute, you've been to the Isle of Faces? Tell me more right now. That becomes even more important for Rhaegar to be like, okay, I need to like attach myself to this group because this little Cranog man, he's got a pass to something I've been wanting to get to.
Yeah, so Rhaegar wouldn't have been able to go to the Isle of Faces and come back during the tourney. But we know that he and Lyanna apparently visited together after they absconded, because we have that calendar art of Rhaegar and Lyanna apparently on the Isle of Faces.
Yeah.
And so Howland was there right before the tourney. And so, yeah, that's one of the things I was putting together, was that obviously those things aren't a coincidence. You know, Howland Reed must have told them to go. He probably brought them there, in all likelihood.
He was probably the rower.
Probably.
He may have officiated their marriage for all we know.
It would make a lot of sense. Yeah. And so I am leaving my secret wedding video up. It's just the love story one. That one I'm going to take down. I might redo that at some point and offer a more well-rounded take, but who knows? We'll see. So
oh, that just made me think, who
what'd you say, Tim?
So that actually would set up I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, if it's Karen or Sharon, but if that sets up Howland Reed as a Sharon figure, the ferryman on the river Styx, rowing Lyanna and Rhaegar to the Isle of Faces, and this is all a portent for their future death.
Yeah, I think it's Sharon.
Sharon.
Or Caron, might even be a hard CH, but I'm not sure. Frog Cerberus. There you go. Yeah, but he's, like I said, it's just too much of a coincidence. He either told them to go or he rode them out there, one or the other, which then affects your opinion of what was going on at the Tower of Joy. Because when Ned gets to the Tower of Joy, he's with Howland Reed. So Howland Reed has already filled Ned in on a lot of the stuff, like whatever happened on the Isle of Faces, the prophecy. Like he knew all that shit before he got up to the tower and talked to Lyanna. And when we talk about Ned saying, "Oh, I would have died but for Howland Reed," a lot of people have suggested we shouldn't assume that means Howland Reed killed Arthur Dayne for him. It could be that Howland Reed talked to Arthur Dayne, and that's the only way that Ned survived. Otherwise, he would have died. You know, maybe he stopped the fight, got them to talk. I think after Hightower is dead, Tim, is when Dayne and Ned and Howland might be able to work something out, potentially.
Especially, too, if Howland did in fact hook up with Ashara Dane that during the tourney. Again, like everyone thinks that it's Ned, it was that she went to see Ned, but Howland was bunking with Ned. So my tinfoil is that Ned was playing wingman and that it was Howland that she went to his tent to see.
Definitely. And I honestly, In Deep Geek convinced me. I'd always been a fan of the idea that Ashara is actually Diana Reed, because her ancestor is Diana Dane, so it's like Diana Reed. Like, okay, that could be a Dane, like, you know. Sorry, Tim.
And Mira Reed is the heir. So even though they have a son, the firstborn who is the daughter is the heir. That's not common in the North, but very common in Dorne.
Okay, so Chiron. Yeah, I think that is correct. Yeah, that's what the chat is saying, that at least in a video game, that's how it's pronounced. So we'll go with that. Hopefully they did their research. So yeah, Ashara could be Diana. That would be interesting. That would mean that Bran ate not only did he eat a Cranog man, he ate a half Dane Cranog man. That's some potent weirwood paste right there.
Yeah, and the idea of course, of Ashara Dane being Diana Reed is it's all Hal's moving castle. Hal catching a falling star, and then Howland Reed, Greywater Watch is a moving castle.
Yeah, it makes sense. Right, yeah, that's what the chat is pointing out too. The Howl falling star thing. That's cool. Cool. So this is a quote about Cersei and Rhaegar, and this will be a transition into Cersei and Jaime talk. This is really fascinating, and I've got a couple of questions from you guys. By the way, part of the new show format is I am asking every week the Discord for questions before we do this. And so this is another reason to join our Discord, which you can do by joining Patreon or using the join button below the video to become a YouTube channel member squisher, which makes your name green, and it gives you some icons in the chat, like some of these folks here. And so Tim, I need to just grab a drink from the fridge because I don't have anything except for this, and I need to get some Gatorade. Would you do me the kindness of reading this quote?
Okay. So, Cersei and Rhaegar. She was 10 when she finally saw her prince in the flesh, at the tourney her lord father had thrown to welcome King Aerys to the west. Viewing stands had been raised beneath the walls of Lannisport, and the cheers of the small folk had echoed off Casterly Rock like rolling thunder. They cheered father twice as loudly as they cheered the king, the queen recalled, but only half as loudly as they cheered Prince Rhaegar. 17 and new to knighthood, Rhaegar Targaryen had worn black plate over golden ringmail when he cantered onto the lists. Long streamers of red and gold and orange silk had floated behind his helm like flames. 2 of her uncles fell before his lance, along with a dozen of her father's finest jousters, the flower of the West. By night, the prince played his silver harp and made her weep. When she had been presented to him, Cersei had almost drowned in the depths of his sad purple eyes. He has been wounded, she recalled thinking, but I will mend his heart when we are wed. Oh, sad boy, who hurt you? Next to Rhaegar, even her beautiful Jaime had seemed no more than a callow boy. The prince is going to be my husband, she had thought, giddy with excitement, and when the old king dies, I'll be the queen. Her aunt had confided that truth to her before the tourney. You must be especially beautiful, Lady Jenna told her, fussing with her dress. For at the final feast it shall be announced that you and Prince Rhaegar are betrothed. Cersei had been so happy that day. Elsewise, she would never have dared visit the tent of Maggie the Frog. She had only done it to show Jane and Melara that the lioness fears nothing. I was going to be a queen. Why should a queen be afraid of some hideous old woman? The memory of that foretelling still made her flesh crawl a lifetime later. Jane ran shrieking from the tent in fear, the queen remembered, but Melara stayed, and so did I. We let her taste our blood and laughed at her stupid prophecies. None of them made the least bit of sense. She was going to be Prince Rhaegar's wife, no matter what the woman said. Her father had promised it, and Tywin Lannister's word was gold.
Nicely read, Tim. Nicely read. As always, thank you. And I see the chat was loving the quote. This is a rich one. Oh, yeah, no, I was... Did this have the one about her drawing a picture? Or is that a different one?
No, that's a different one. There's nothing to do
Okay,
about
so
drawing.
that's the other one that goes with this. One time Jaime walked in on Cersei drawing a picture of her on a dragon with Rhaegar, with her arms around him. And then she was like, oh, that's Jaehaerys and Alysanne. Yeah.
No, but this one is the one chat is picking up on it with Cersei and her total "I can fix him" energy.
Oh yeah, that's the headline of the quote, right? That's pretty funny. And so there's a couple of questions that kind of go with this. Can you make people green manually if they're on Patreon? No, I'm not able to. It's just a YouTube thing. So I think my Patreon starts at 10 now. So the idea is if you want to do like a $5 a month thing, then just do YouTube channel member Squisher. And I think it's 10 and up after Patreon. But either one will get... In fact, you can sign up for Patreon for free and still get a link to the Discord. But to do the Patreon thing proper, yeah. So, let's see here. What else was in here that I want? Okay, let's go to the questions here. So the Book Dragon has a great one. Thank you, Juliana Snow. Very kind of you. Some free memberships just given out. So we got some.
Squisher, more Squisher eggs were laid.
More Squisher eggs were laid. Thank you, Tim. I should be using this sort of parlance. You're good at this. So the Book Dragon from Discord says, young Jaime and Cersei are products of Tywin. They're being spoilt and left to it by him turns them into little mini-me's. I like this analysis. Jaime becomes impulsive and obsessed with being the best warrior, and Cersei becomes vain and prideful. My favorite theory of choice is that Tywin was the one to fund the tourney of Harrenhal. Rhaegar's funds would have had to come from the treasury, which would have been easy to prove. Varys did indeed stir the pot, but if there was definitive proof of Rhaegar's involvement, Aerys would have been able to punish him without protest. The fact that Tywin wasn't there, but his heir and other representatives were, is a bit fishy. And it led to Aerys, who wasn't expected, to name Jaime to the Kingsguard as Tywin wasn't there to protect him. Tywin wanted revenge, and the tourney was the beginning of the end. And Tywin is conspicuous by his absence. Unfortunately, Jaime was as much a victim of Tywin's revenge as anyone. Much like King Lear or Macbeth, he brought on the downfall of his own house due to his pride, need for vengeance, and belief of his own self-important thinking himself invisible and untouchable, which he later passed down to his children. His parenting or lack of for Jaime and Cersei, etc. And the fact they worship their father and follow his lead, even from childhood, proves that. The way Cersei storms into Maggie the Frog's home, kicks her awake, and demands she do as she is bid, is peak Tywin. The result is that she is given prophecies that destroy her and subsequently her family. So a lot of good stuff in there. Thank you, Book Dragon. And the key thing, Tim, let's talk about the idea that Tywin funded Harrenhal. That it seems like a strong theory to me.
Yeah, because what do I always say is the true curse of Harrenhal? It makes you house poor. So the Wents, who are the current lords of Harrenhal, they don't have the money for something this extravagant. They just have the prime real estate because Harrenhal is the biggest castle and is able to accommodate. And then plus there is the Went connection in that there is a Went on the Kingsguard.
Not only on the Kingsguard, but close to Rhaegar. And with Rhaegar doing his, he's in the inner circle. Go ahead.
So once again, so that's like you said, the inner circle. Like we just talked about, how are the introduction? How do these things work? Well, it's like you know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy, right? And this is how these things get set up. So Tywin bankrolling this to create further assurances that his daughter will marry the prince, and because he hates Aerys at this point, and would see Rhaegar as a much better alternative, especially if he marries my daughter, then he's the best alternative. My son-in-law sits the throne, and then my grandchildren are the heirs to the throne. It's win-win for Tywin to do all that.
Yeah. There's, and the other thing is Duskendale. The rumored quotes from Tywin, basically when Aerys was taken prisoner, Tywin's like, hey, if, we do have another, Prince Rhaegar looks like a pretty good king in the making. We could just go with him. And then Barristan's like, no.
And you just Tywin quietly seething that Barry was too good at his job.
Well, and this is kind of my point. Not about Barristan being a horrible person. He means well. He's just kind of simple. In any case, point is...
It is... What it is Barry saving the Mad King Aerys. It's a repeat of Aemon the Dragon Knight, right? You were you were such a good Kingsguard, but you did it for the absolute worst king, right? It's like using all the goodwill towards the worst person.
Well, and so this is the whole thing about the Kingsguard, and this is the point I made in the video. If you have a dishonorable king, and the Kingsguard just goes along with it and doesn't act as any sort of check on power, then that white cloak becomes a shield for dishonorable deeds. And that's essentially what we have here. We have Barristan using his 007 secret agent Barristan skills to rescue the Mad King, who was about to be, potentially offed. And so we'll come back to this topic more later, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's just like, man, things would have been so much easier if you just let him die. And that really is the underlying thing going on here. And it sounds terrible to say, but it's the truth. It's the truth.
And so Ereka says, concerning young Cersei and Jaime, if Cersei had ended up married to Rhaegar, do we think she would have been true to him and not been with Jaime on the side? Would Jaime's honorable view on Rhaegar change from having to see the woman he loves, his sister, be with him instead? So I don't know that Jaime thinks of Rhaegar as... He doesn't seem to have really strong opinions about Rhaegar, one way or the other. He's in his memories a couple times, but he thinks more about like Arthur Dayne and the Smiling Knight and stuff like that. White Bull. Rhaegar is like, I don't know that he has a real strong feeling about Rhaegar. But the first question, would Cersei have been true to Rhaegar? No. To phrase it another way, would Rhaegar have been good enough to make Cersei behave like a normal married partner? The answer is no. Cersei pushed her friend down a well when she was 11. Like, Cersei's messed up. I don't know. She probably would have demeaned Jaime, but then eventually gone back to him. And she probably would have philandered on the side. She eventually would have found problems with Rhaegar because he's not perfect, like we said. And then we have this other question. If Cersei had married Rhaegar, how would she and Tywin have reacted to Rhaegar pulling some sort of Lyanna-type stunt at Harrenhal?
Oh, the moment that Cersei and Rhaegar have their first fight, Cersei is sending Jaime that 2 a.m. you up text. You just know it.
Yeah, so not well at all is the answer. And one of the things I had brought up about in Rhaegar's defense is the fact that the Martells don't seem to have any grudge against him, which kind of gives us a clue that they must know that Elia was in on what he was doing, or they just weren't offended by him taking a second wife, if that's what he was doing. But I definitely don't think the Lannisters would have been okay with that. So,
the thing
It could
is
just be that
that
Doran is opportunistic, and that's really all it is to it. But so this quote here, as they approached the cliff, this is Jaime and Brienne, the cliff-like walls of Black Heron's monstrous castle. Brienne squeezed his arm. Lord Bolton holds this castle. The Boltons are bannermen to the Starks. The Boltons skin their enemies. Jaime remembered that much about the Northmen. Tyrion would have known all there was to know about the Lord of the Dreadfort, but Tyrion was 1,000 leagues away with Cersei. I cannot die while Cersei lives, he told himself. We will die together as we were born together. So this is clear Valonqar foreshadowing here. Just wanted to point that out. The castellan outside the walls had been burned to ash. The Castleton. Castle Town. It's like the little town outside the castle. Okay. The Castleton outside the walls had been burned to ash and blackened stone, and many men and horses had recently encamped beside the lake shore, where Lord Went had staged his great tourney in the year of the fall spring. A bitter smile touched Jaime's lips as they crossed that torn ground. Someone had dug a privy trench in the very spot where he'd once knelt before the king to say his vows. I never dreamed how quick the sweet would turn sour. Ares would not even let me savor that one night. He honored me, and then he spat on me. And the other quote that goes with this, that you pulled, Tim, where Jaime says, I didn't dishonor the White Cloak. The White Cloak soiled me. And this is, there's a privy trench where he took the vow. Like, that's not an accidental.
Yeah. So yeah, this is I earned my knighthood. Nothing was given to me. I won a tourney melee at 13 when I was yet a squire. At 15, I rode with Sir Arthur Dane against the Kingswood Brotherhood, and he knighted me on the battlefield. It was that White Cloak that soiled me, not the other way around.
So I think George is emphasizing that here by putting the privy trench where he knelt. So it means, yeah, he knelt in shit the moment that he put his white cloak on.
Exactly. Such a way of painting with words. But yeah, that's exactly it.
It's nice. It's yeah, the sweet turns sour. And so here's this brings us to the Hero with 1,000 Voices. Yeah, backside. Yep. Brings us to the question of Jaime being put on the Kingsguard. Because during my research for the Jaime video, I came across this thing where Jaime does the whole Kingswood Brotherhood with Arthur Dane, and he gets knighted. Okay? And then on his way back to Casterly Rock is when he stops by King's Landing to see Cersei, and after a night of passionate incest, like I said, Cersei pitches him on the plan. Oh, there's a spot on the Kingsguard that just opened up. I'll get you named to it, and then you can be here in King's Landing with me. This, however, requires Jaime to give up his status as heir to Casterly Rock, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the thing is, a month later is when Jaime got the invitation at Casterly Rock to come to King's Landing, or to come to the Harrenhal tourney, and that he would be named a Kingsguard. It wasn't a surprise at Harrenhal. He actually got that message at Casterly Rock. Okay? And so, how did Cersei, in a month, how did she pull the strings to get Jaime named to the Kingsguard? There's only two people that could name Jaime to the Kingsguard. Gerald Hightower, who's the Lord Commander, or King Ares himself. So somehow, Cersei either manipulated one of those two people, or someone did on her behalf. Your thoughts, Tim, and chat.
Well, first I want to give an answer to that question that came before that about how would Cersei have reacted to Rhaegar pulling the Lyanna stunt.
I'm sorry, Tim. I moved on without letting you answer. Next time, stop me if I'm moving on and you have something, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. My answer to that is it might not even been necessary. Like, the whole reason that he went after Lyanna is because Elia Martell couldn't give him any more children. After baby Aegon, she was like, I can't do this again. Cersei has 3 kids, and we never hear about any complications during her pregnancy. So the need for a second wife might not have even been needed. Instead, though, the question then becomes, if in this hypothetical Cersei-Rhaegar marriage, are the children that Cersei's having, it becomes the same as it is with Robert Baratheon. Are they really Rhaegar's children, or are they Jaime bastards again? Because we had just said, more than likely, even if Cersei did marry Rhaegar, she probably wasn't going to put Jaime aside. She probably still was going to have affairs with him. He still would have been a side piece for her. Now, as to this, though, going back to the topic that we're on, so it's a show-only quote, but it's one where Cersei tells Sansa, a woman's tears are not her only weapon. There's also what's between your legs. Learn how to use it. And
I think there's something similar in the books too, Tim. Go ahead.
But I had raised the idea of like, what if, and I know you didn't like it, but I still got to throw it out there because it's plausible. Did Cersei seduce King Aerys? Now, here's the thing. King Aerys yearned for Cersei's mother. We know that he took privileges with Joanna Lannister. So could the Mad King see the mother in the daughter? We already have this because that's exactly how Littlefinger's weird relationship with Sansa. Yeah. So maybe did Cersei seduce the Mad King? Is that how Jaime got on there? We don't know, but it's within the realm of possibility.
It does have to be considered. It's very twisted. She's only 15, so that'd be messed up if she's doing that. But
she already threw a friend down a well.
That's the thing.
She's a sociopath.
And so the thing about it is that I don't really see any specific clues that it did happen. And if it had happened and George is thinking about it, it just seems like his nature to drop clues about that. Maybe the clues are the fact that Aerys was such an abuser and a philanderer, earlier in life. But, so that's one possibility. Mental images need acid and moving on. The other thing is Gerald Hightower. Who's to say Gerald Hightower was untemptable and uncorruptible? That's honestly, if you're Cersei, I'd probably choose Gerald Hightower to seduce, not only because Aerys is gross and stuff, but because like Kingsguard are famous, they're celibate, they're ready to crack basically at a moment's notice. They haven't gotten any in a long, long time. And again, we don't know much about Gerald Hightower except for that he's kind of a dick, seemingly.
Yeah. I thought about this one too on a symbolic level. Cersei seducing the White Bull, a scandal like that, it's like up there with the fallacious rumor of Catherine the Great and her horse. If you're familiar with those rumors, there's it could be elements of that. Just symbolically, not
well.
literally.
And there's a lot of irony to it because Jaime becomes Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and Cersei's banging him. So maybe she banged a Lord Commander beforehand. Jaime says, "Oh yeah, the White Bull." When he was explaining to Kat about Aerys burning people and the White Bull saying, "Oh, we're not supposed to judge the king," and then Jaime's like, "Oh, that was the White Bull, a better man than me. All agree." That would be funny, kind of. If the White Bull had slept with Cersei and
didn't Zeus sleep with a woman after turning into? He sleeps with women after turning into a couple different animals.
Yes. And I was going to say the Greek myth of Cersei. She's on an island and she transforms people into animals, and that's part of Robert. The pig the boar that's roasted is like Robert and stuff like that. I don't know if there's a bull involved in that story. It's been a minute since I looked at it. It's pigs is the main thing. Yeah, exactly. But there's a couple of lady bulls in the Zeus myths. That is true. So you can see that one to me makes a little bit more sense. However, I will say that probably what makes the most sense is what Hari Krishnan KX1 is from YouTube commented. It's most likely through Varys. Cersei does say that she used to trust Varys when she was younger. I couldn't find that quote. I'm taking this person's word for it. Varys could have helped her out by whispering the idea in Aerys' ear. Varys himself would have seen it as a great opportunity to break up Tywin and Aerys for good. And so I guess I skipped over a point. The motivations here are complex. We know that Aerys did name Jaime. in order to spite Tywin. Like that is clearly established. So that is why Aerys thought that he was doing it. And so we got to think, how did Cersei, when her motivation is totally different, she's not necessarily trying to spite Tywin, right? Like, did Cersei, in the scenario that Cersei is directly interacting with Aerys somehow, she would have to, it wouldn't make sense for her to pitch the plan to Aerys as like, oh, you can spite my father by naming Jaime to your Kingsguard. Like,
yeah.
That only makes sense, Tim, if Cersei is actually plotting to steal Jaime's inheritance. And that's the real reason that she's going to get him named on the Kingsguard, which we are going to entertain that idea in a second. But the Varys thing kind of makes this make sense also, because Varys can sort of listen to what Cersei wants and then come up with a different reasoning that appeals to Aerys. And so he can be the sort of go-between between these two different motivations. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, because Varys has pulled these shenanigans before. The reason that Aerys shows up at Harrenhal is because Varys told him what was going on, and because up until that point, Aerys hadn't left the after the Defiance of Duskendale. Aerys is at the height of his paranoia. He has secluded himself in the Red Keep. He hasn't left it in years. That's when he has like the long matted hair, the long fingernails. When he shows up at Harrenhal, it is the first time people have seen him out and about in years. And this is what they see, right? They see this gangly old man and everyone. So then that raises, well, what is Varys's motivations in telling him this, right? Is it to get him out there so people can see, like, this is our king? Look at him. He looks terrible. What's going on here? Does that add more fuel to the fire? So, yeah, Cersei naively saying something to Varys and then Varys capitalizing on it, totally within the realm of plausibility for the spider.
Yeah, and so basically these are the three possibilities that we have. You know, somehow Cersei manipulated either Hightower or Aerys. And really, the more I think about it, it would have to be Aerys, because Aerys seems to be the one naming Jaime to the Kingsguard. Like, at some point, he gains this notion that this is how we can spite Tywin. And so he essentially makes this decision. I don't think it's something that Hightower does on its own. So yeah, I think the Varys theory makes the most sense. And there you go. So that's could be how Cersei did it. Now, what I'm curious about also is, like, how is Cersei so confident? She tells Jaime, "Oh yeah, don't worry, like, I'll take care of it," and then she does. So that's kind of crazy. I just wanted to say that. Now, she may have been doing it specifically to disinherit Jaime. I think this is a strong idea. Did she get Jaime named to the Kingsguard to steal his inheritance? So, here's the quote. Will you read this paragraph right here for me, Tim? And this is Ned talking to Cersei.
Sure. Your brother, Ned said, or your lover? Both. She did not flinch from the truth, since we were children together, and why not? The Targaryens wed brother to sister for 300 years to keep the bloodlines pure, and Jaime and I are more than brother and sister. We are one person in two bodies. We shared a womb together. He came into this world holding my foot, our old maester said. When he is in me, I feel whole. The ghost of a smile flitted over her lips.
Sorry, I made you read the gross incest quote on purpose, Tim. I confess.
I thought I was supposed to watch my language in this one, and you put the dirty words in my mouth.
Well, it sounded dirty. It sounded dirty. I'm not putting anything in your mouth, Tim. What are you talking about? So here's the point. This is a reference to Jacob and Esau from the Bible. They are a pair, without going deep on it, they are a pair of brothers who are born, they're twins, but they do not look alike. So they're born at the same time. What's the word for that?
Fraternal?
Yeah.
They're not identical twins, they're fraternal twins.
Esau with teats, yeah, if you will. And so basically Esau's born first, Jacob comes out second, clutching Esau's heel. And there's some sort of prophecy about, oh, this means there's going to be strife. And what ends up happening is that Jacob steals Esau's blessing and birthright, essentially by dressing up like him. Esau is a hunter, always smells of animals, and he's hairy. And so Jacob puts on like lamb's wool on his shoulders and cheeks. And the father is blind. And the father gives out the blessing when he's dying. And so basically Jacob dresses up like Esau. I'm sorry if I'm getting any of the details wrong. I didn't look this up. This is just from Sunday school memory here. But basically Jacob tricks his father into thinking that he is Esau, so that the father gives Jacob the blessing. There's more to it than that. But basically he steals Esau's birthright. Now with Cersei and Jaime, it's interesting. Cersei is born first, but Jaime is the one who has the birthright because he's male, which Cersei resents constantly. And so the question is, did Cersei try to steal Jaime's birthright? Potentially so. By George referencing this story, he's introducing that theme of these two twins born at the same time, with the one who didn't get the birthright by being born with it, stole it from the other. And that's functionally what Cersei did by getting Jaime to become a Kingsguard, because she could probably say, oh, well, Tywin's not going to name Tyrion his heir, so who's he going to give it to? Because this is after she's given up her hopes of marrying Rhaegar by this point. Okay?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if she gets Jaime to be in the Kingsguard, she will eventually inherit Casterly Rock and be the Lady of Casterly Rock. And she just, if you look at her POV, she constantly sees herself as the main character, as the one who should be in charge. So I think it fits. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, because first of all, I gotta say, because the Jacob and Esau one was new to me. And it's partly because I was doing all this Praetorian Guard research on my own end. When I thought of twins at odds, my mind went to Romulus and Remus, the twins who founded Rome, suckled at the teat of a wolf. Certainly. And they disagree on where to build Rome. One wants to build it on one hill, and eventually Romulus kills Remus, and then he becomes the first High King of the new founded city. So, yeah, so to hear the Jacob and Esau one, that one actually was like, well, that one tends to make more sense in context, but still can't discount the Romulus and Remus story and the elements that those play in there.
So it's Romulus and Remus is a variant of the Proto-Indo-European horse twins myth, which also appears in the form of the Dioscuri, Castor and Pollux. George is specifically referencing that with the name Casterly Rock, and many other details besides. And Castor and Pollux, one of them has Zeus as a father, and one has a mortal father. I think it is Castor who is the divine one, but correct me in the chat because I really can't remember. But that's the whole point. There's one kills the other, or one dies so the other can live. There's different variations of it. With Romulus and Remus, it's one that kills the other. Castor and Pollux, it's a little more complex, I believe. Sorry. But yes, the point is, George is kind of referencing all this stuff. When he's doing twins and brothers fighting, he's going to, grab a bunch of different stuff and merge it together. So it's Pollux who's the divine brother, and he dies.
Yeah. But to this point, and I do believe there's a quote, I think, where Cersei says, if we were in Dorne, I'd be the heir, which is true. And it's when Cersei is reflecting on, it's like, well, when we were young and we looked so identical and we would dress in one another's clothes, and it's like they couldn't even tell us apart. And so it's her questioning of but why am I treated so differently because of my gender? So the idea of her stealing his inheritance is then it comes down to if Jaime is removed from the line of succession, as he is, by being named the Kingsguard and giving up all inheritance, now it's a toss-up between Cersei and Tyrion, right? So now the question becomes, who does Tywin favor? The daughter or the dwarf son? OnlyFans daughter, SoundCloud rapper son. Who do you choose? You're muted. You're muted.
I was just saying, see, you can keep it real, Tim, without necessarily going full filthy lank potty mouth sailor talk, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, and so this is to me a very plausible theory, and not one that I've ever considered. That because I never really caught that bit about Cersei telling Jaime that she would get him named to the Kingsguard. I only remember the thing about Aerys doing it to spite Tywin. So it's more complex than that, and it introduces this idea. It's like, oh, it was Cersei's idea for him to join the Kingsguard. She's really manipulating him, not only for him to be close to her, but so that she can eventually steal his inheritance. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Cersei's
like... Cersei totally is the type, too, of, if I can't have it, then no one will. So, the idea of her, even if she doesn't get it, it's still like, well, at least you didn't, like, well, neither one of us have it. So, we're both miserable, because misery loves company.
And that fits to me because Cersei is very, very abusive to Jaime in their chapters from A Feast for Crows onward, after Jaime gets his hand cut off. She's constantly mocking him for basically getting older and having a disability, and she's ruthless. And I really only caught it when we did a couple of Jaime chapter rereads, and I was like, damn, dude, that's like... And Jaime has trauma from it. Like, he has a weird self-image because of it. You can see him like internalizing the abuse that she's giving him. So to me, this makes sense that like she thinks she loves Jaime even while she's doing a, well, if I can't have it, you can't. We'll be together in King's Landing, you know?
And what does it all culminate in? So earlier I had said, like, I had mentioned the 2 a.m. you up text. Well, then as Jaime's going on his character growth and his journey of self-discovery, and Cersei's at her lowest point, and then he gets that letter, and he burns it, right? That is Jaime getting the I miss you text and hitting block. That's a sentence, right? That's what happened.
He looked at it in the message list without opening it.
Yeah, just finally blocking that number.
He left it on scene. So, and then a couple of questions here or comments. Brittnig Prefect on themes, poor reflections, and cycles, starting with his hand on her ankle and ending it with it around her throat, as the Valonqar is prophesied to do, is a perfect way for both of them to die. Yeah. And we just read that quote earlier where Jaime's like, I can't die before Cersei. We got to go out together like we came in together. So similar idea here. They came into the world with Jaime grabbing Cersei, and like if he chokes her, then that's what'll happen. Not that we're supporting violence against women or anything, but like, yeah, that's the Valonqar prophecy. Is the hands of the Valonqar will close around your neck.
Yeah. And what's the quote about hands of gold, right? Hands
always cold, Tim.
Always cold, yeah. And he has a cold hand of gold. His gold prosthetic hand.
It probably is cold too. I think Lannisters killing each other's reflection is an ongoing thing. Tywin, who likes to see himself as the embodiment of House Lannister, exterminates the reigns of Castamere, who definitely and this is all, I went deep on the Lannisters in the Origins of Land the Clever and Secret Origin of Casterly Rock video. But thinking of Castor and Pollux, House Casterly, and then the reigns of Castamere, and the reign sigil is also a lion with the same colors, just flipped. Like, yes, these ancient houses must have been related, and they must have both been related before Land the Clever, because they have names that go back to the Casterlys. The reigns of Castamere must have been connected to the first Casterlys of the Rock before Lan. So when Tywin Lannister comes along and exterminates the Casterlys, very much so. This is a continuation of this brothers fighting and killing each other, siblings killing each other theme. So it's a great point by Simranjit. And he goes on and says, Tywin himself is killed by Tyrion, who is his reflection, just writ small. Likewise, Cersei and Jaime are each other's reflection. Cersei wants to be like Tyrion. Tywin, I think, is meant. And Jaime respects Tyrion's intellect and often thinks about what he would do in his place. So yeah, that's themes, not just for book reports. In a coat of gold, a coat of red, a lion still has claws. Yeah, the song elevates the Casterlys. Like, we don't talk about the Rains. We talk about the Casterlys. That's, it's Lord of, or the Castameres, rather. Or the Rains are, the Tarbecks, sorry. Because the Tarbecks were genocided too. Nobody talks about the Tarbecks. That's what I meant to say. We talk about the Rains of Castamere. So, yeah. In Sir Eustace's story, it's a little lion of Osgray that defeats a Lannister lion. So yeah, even more. Huh. Where are we on Cersei has latent lion skin changer powers thing? Absolutely, Crypt Girl. I talked about that too. All these, because that's the whole point of the Children of the Forest, talking about the lions, the great lions of the West, in the same breath as unicorns and direwolves. That tells you, yes, people used to be skin-changing lions out in the West, and probably it was the Casterlys. Yeah, I talked about that in the video. And the whole, there may have been lion skin changer war stuff going on. That whole thing about the first Casterly found he found the shaft of gold because he spared the lion cubs after killing the adult lions. Mm-hmm. It sounds more like he's taking the rock from a brother or a relative that already had it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, he killed the lions and then he adopted the cubs. Like, yeah. Oh, okay.
Plus, it's just like in the First Man Children of the Forest wars, if the Children of the Forest have lions to call upon, that makes things significantly worse for the First Men. That makes that war a lot scarier.
And I believe that is in the quote. I think the lions are in the quote about the High Heart. I'll pull it up, actually. I believe they are. I'll do it with my phone. And then let's see. Will you read this comment by Common Era?
Sure. There has been speculation of Cersei fleeing King's Landing and ending up at Casterly Rock in the Winds of Winter. Do you think this is a likely place for Jaime and Cersei to reunite? And if Jaime is the Valonqar, will this be the place where he strangles her with his golden hand after learning of the atrocities we suspect she will have committed to avoid justice? So this is assuming, so I guess we're assuming here that the whole blowing up the Sept of Baelor is going to happen.
Not necessarily. I think that the idea that Fagon is going to be greeted by cheering crowds implies that he's going to take King's Landing from the Lannisters somehow. And so, however that happens, you could get a scenario where she's fleeing to Casterly Rock. But I do think, obviously the Sept of Baelor, it's possible.
Yeah. Something's got to happen to the High Sparrow. The reason I think the Sept of Baelor thing, at least something similar will happen, is so in my Blood and Citrus one where I talked about 7 snakes in the stew. So Tyene Sand is her mission when Oberyn Martell gives all of these missions, right, to the Sand Snakes. Hers is to go ingratiate herself with the High Sparrow, and so if something happens to the High Sparrow at like the Sept of Baelor, and Tyene Sand gets caught up in that, that's another dead Sand Snake. So that just solidifies to me that, because I think that my argument is that Oberyn Martell is essentially sending all the Martell children, his own children plus his nieces, that he's essentially sending them off to their death, and that's why we get the line in The Watcher about 7 different snakes in the stew.
Yeah, I love that theory. I think that's good work on your part, Tim. Is that your original theory or was someone else's?
No, that was mine. That was just me counting.
That's hot.
That was just me counting how many Martell kids are out doing something. Oh, it's 7? Oh, hey, look at that.
Gustavo is pointing out that even in the white coat of the Kingsguard, Jaime still has a golden claw. Yeah, that's good. There's a lot of cat's paw punnery going on in the book. I'll just say that. Thank you for the super chats. Lord Mercy says, if Jaime picks Brienne over Cersei, and Cersei finds out what keeps her from getting retribution, she seems very hostile towards her brothers and clearly wants Tyrion dead. She claims to love Jaime, but she just seems unpredictable. Yeah. Well, we kind of addressed most of this. Yes, obviously Cersei could turn on Jaime. No doubt. But last she's heard, he disappeared in the Riverlands. So we'll just have to see how things evolve by the time they face each other. Jaime and Brienne are definitely reuniting. I mean, they already did reunite last we saw Jaime.
Yeah, that's the...
So it was just a matter of what happens down in that cave.
Because she's taking him to Lady Stoneheart.
Sean is pointing out that Dany gets a white lion coat from her husband, who's a symbolic dragon, because Drogo's gives his name to Drogon. And Ares is a dragon figure who gets a white lion cloak. Yeah, a Kingsguard.
He gives a lion a white. Yeah, he gives a lion a white cloak.
Yeah. Rudy Wild, who sent in a super chat earlier. Thanks, Rudy. Just read this, felt like it fit in today's topic. A little foreshadowing of Jaime and Brienne. In Storm of Swords, when he gets cousin Cleo's Frey's sword and they have their duel, sometime during the middle he says, "Come on, wench, let's dance. The music is still playing." I remember that. And it makes me think of Renly asking her to dance when they were kids, which sparked her lifelong love of Renly. Yes, so that's perfect. So this is the one thing we know. Brienne likes music. She can sing. She does like to dance. And it's a big part of her dream, not being clumsy when she dances and this and that. And so Renly makes her feel graceful. That's what it was. And so here we have Jaime dancing with her, but they're doing swordplay, which is what Brienne likes the best. So yeah, it just fits in with all the very heavy flirting and innuendo that's in all the Jaime and Brienne scenes. There's so much, really, just so much.
Yeah.
We read one of their... Were you with me on that chapter where we read where they were fighting in the stream? Or was that Sean?
It was probably Sean. I don't remember doing...
We could not keep a straight face. Like, it was every line. Once we locked, it's like every line had sexual innuendo. It was terrible. George is... he's a randy wench. I'll just say that. Are Jaime and Cersei like a messed up Apollo and Artemis? Do you recall the relationship between Apollo and Artemis?
No. Apollo and Artemis.
I don't off the top of my head. Sean will type an answer in the chat in like 3 different messages, though.
Oh, so Apollo is the god of music, prophecy, healing the sun, representing masculine ideals. And his sister Artemis is the goddess of the hunt, wilderness, and the moon, embodying untamed nature. And they are both skilled archers. Oh, so he's supposed to be representing masculine forms. And so you would think the inverse of his sister would be that she's representing feminine forms, but instead his sister is representing more masculine forms.
Yeah, there could be some inspiration by that, but I think that Rhaegar is a lot more like Apollo, and Artemis is more like Arya, in my opinion. But let's see here.
So Artemis sounds like the goddess of tomboys.
So Irish Eagle's mentioning Balor of the Evil Eye. I definitely have talked about Balor quite a bit, actually. And I have read those legends, and they are good. Influential on Euron, as well as a lot of the like deep lore about the meteor shower and Night's King and stuff. Like all the Baal names are tied into this one archetype. So Peter Baelish, Bael the Bard, obviously Baelor, King Baelor with his white ice temple that the warrior sons come out of looking like others. It's all Night King stuff. So Night King is Balor of the Evil Eye, so to speak. And Rhaegar is tied into that too. So yeah, that's a good reminder though. I should go into that sometime a little more. Yeah, Artemis is a maiden goddess and a huntress, and that's why I get the Arya stuff. But there's more to it also. So when is it okay to kill the king? And we're getting close to the Praetorian. Oh, go ahead, Jimmy.
Oh, this made me real. So
I called
Baelor
you
the
Jamie.
Blessed.
Tim, sorry, you're just extra masculine and beautiful today. Go ahead.
So that just remind me, our Baelor the Blessed. His wife is a maiden huntress goddess, Dana the Defiant, right? Our Baelor the Blessed is married to the huntress goddess, but he sets her aside and locks her in the maiden vault so that he.
Which is what Balor of the Evil Eye does. He locks women in a tower to prevent a prophecy from coming true, but his grandson Lou is born anyway and slays him and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, but Dana the Defiant, like her whole thing was she's like a Cersei and Asha Greyjoy type character. She's like, the tomboy is what I'm getting at. That's Dana the Defiant.
Well, not all of the virgin goddesses in Greek mythology, chat, are actually virgins. Some of them have children and are still called virgins. The word virgin actually has different connotations in the past and doesn't just refer to sexual purity. It can also mean it's the Virgo in the word virgin actually comes from a synonym for vigorous. So it's like a powerful, strong example of a female archetype. A powerful woman of status in society is called a virgin in this context. I was just watching about this on a video. So yeah, some of the Greek goddesses that are called virgins have children. So that's why, because it's not always that connotation. It can mean purity of spirit as well. Yeah, it can mean unmarried, as a few different things. So the idea that Dana is not a virgin because she obviously gave birth to Daemon Blackfire, she's in the maiden vault. So it's still, that could be a parallel. But it's the main thing is Balor locking up women. But there's another locking up women myth that he is referencing. And I think it might be tied to the name Dana, but I forget what it is. Maybe Sean will remember in the chat. Okay, so
when it's okay to kill the king.
Yes, I'll read this comment. This is a great take. The Kingsguard are the ultimate example of the hypocrisy of knighthood. We as readers all know that knights like Gregor are evil men, not deserving of a title of a true knight, but the Kingsguard, in fooling even many of the readers, proves Gregor's brother's words are correct. And that's Sandor, obviously. A knight is just a sword with a horse. The rest, the vows and the sacred oils and the lady's favors, they're just silk ribbons tied around the sword. And it's definitely George speaking directly, on the story, kind of almost giving away what his point is. And so the Kingsguard are festooned with so many silk ribbons that we can miss the fact that underneath they are just weapons to be used by whoever is in power. Of course, Jaime himself stands in contrast to that and brings in the riddle that Varys poses to Tyrion about the meaning of power and where it resides. In that, remember the shadow on the wall and the three people trying to command the soldier who's got the power. Jaime looked in his hand and saw the sword. He's like, wait, I have the power, And that's Varys' whole riddle. It's like, if the soldier obeys other people, well, then that person has the power. But if the soldier wants to, he can have the power. And again, we're going to get to this, all the history that you looked up where this happens. And so, of course, Jaime stands in contrast to that. No, I said that. In that moment, Jaime has the power to stop an atrocity, but to do so, he has to abandon everything that a Kingsguard, the greatest knight in life, is supposed to stand for. So yeah, it is brilliant writing. Mm-hmm. And Gustavo's super chat is what I would have said. Oh, Perseus and Danae. Okay. So first, Tim, your thoughts on the comment here.
I mean, I think we're going to go a lot, very in-depth into this comment, into this when we get to the Praetorian Guard talk about
not the Gregorian chant, the Praetorian Guard.
Not the Gregorian. Yeah. I know words, but yeah, I think I'll have more to say on this later when we get to it, when we really get into the meat of this whole thing.
And so, yeah, that's it. It's Perseus and Danae. Exactly. So that's why Dana the Defiant and Baelor the Blessed are matched together. So it's George showing us the two myths.
Is that the same person that slays Medusa?
What's that?
Is that the same Perseus that slays Medusa?
It would be.
Mm.
It would be. Let's see here. And so, a couple more comments here before we get to the Praetorians. OK Cucumber said, Jaime invoked the 25th Amendment to yeet the homicidal maniac from power, as was his duty. That's essentially the argument I was making, so thank you for that. Not unlike Duncan the Tall, Jaime chose to step in to protect the innocent when no one else would, like all true knights must. And this is, I sort of compared Jaime to Dunk, but I should have mentioned this. Yeah, Jaime was a knight who remembered his vows to protect the innocent and the weak. And yeah, he stood up to the king. So it is actually very similar. And of course, Dunk the Tall also becomes Lord Commander of the Kingsguard like Jaime. And then QWERTY-ZZ7 says, Jaime literally committed treason to save strangers that he doesn't know. He strikes me as an idealistic figure, so the whole thing with Brienne feels like him rediscovering his true heart. The symbolism of him losing the hand, which killed the king and pushed Bran out the window, allowed him to see the honor in a woman knight, like he was trying to reconcile his capacity for violence with his care for the weak. That's interesting.
Yeah. And this is why season 8, when Jaime drops that line, like, I never really cared for them, it's like, it is such character assassination for him to say that, right? Because his greatest moment, the thing that he is reviled for, is actually his greatest heroic act ever.
Oh, Dunk almost had his hand chopped off for committing this, for standing up for Tanzel. That's true. Yeah. That's true. And Brittnig Prefect, would you read this one?
Would it have been better if someone acted before the Red Fork? Could members of the Kingsguard who preferred Rhaegar making the decision earlier have saved Jaime from having to do it? Would Westeros be better prepared to face the dark days ahead if they hadn't relied on the actions of one brave youngster who had seen enough taking action into his own hands and shooting his shot? If Jaime had missed, how would Aerys have decorated the Red Keep's new ballroom? Someone acted before the Red Fork. Yeah, and so that would require, and this is why when we get into when Jaime is going to have his memories of his fellow Kingsguards member, and he starts talking them with such vitriol and spite, is in order for that to happen, it would have required his fellow Kingsguards members to undo their programming, right? So, like, think of like Jaime outside of Aerys's chambers when he's R-wording his wife, and he says, like, we're sworn to protect her too, and then Darius says, yeah, but not from him. Like, you see how entrenched these ideas are in their mind, that he can just stand there. He knows what's happening behind that door. He can hear it, and yet can allow it to go on. When you, that kind of deep-seated programming, right? It's hard to undo. That's why tyrants can last so long. That's how you hold on to the seeds of power, is through the kind of manipulation, through the kind of thing that of people not wanting to act because they'll lose their power or their privilege or whatever they gained from allowing these atrocities to happen.
Yeah, and essentially, like, this is the same argument about revolution. When you start a revolution, you're usually breaking the law. And at that point, you're probably breaking the law because there's a critical mass of people that agree the law is unjust or is being used by the people in power in unjust ways. And so then it's like, well, when does it become morally either okay or either even compulsory to break the law, to stand up against unjust laws? That's essentially the question we're asking. Like, killing the king is the most extreme form of that question. However, it is still a question that we all deal with. It's basically like having that moment when you look at what's actually happening, like I said in the video, and say, what's actually happening doesn't match what I'm supposed to do, quote unquote. And that tells you that the law, or whatever is looked at as honorable in this case, is actually kind of twisted.
Exactly.
And so let's all go and blow up some data centers together. Woo! I was just kidding, of course. Yeah. But come join our Discord. We have new discussion groups forming all the time. Just doing comedy here. Again, just comedy. All right. So let's see. Praetorian Guard. Oh gosh, it's your turn, Tim. But before you get started, at GPB, this person here. Come on, people. Come on, people. Jaime reminds me of the Imperial Knights from Star Wars Legacy. Imperial Knights swear an oath to serve the Force as embodied by the Emperor. If the Emperor were to stray from to the dark side, the Imperial Knights are obligated to either return him to the light or kill him if he will not. And that's kind of what we're talking about. And obviously Star Wars drawing from real history here. But yeah, I like this analogy because when we talk about turning to evil in a magical sense, like that's really what Ares is doing. Like he's having crazy dreams and stuff, and he thinks he's going to turn himself into a dragon at the end. So there is that sort of magical insanity and evil component to what he's doing. And so let us flip over to the GreyWasteTim leads.
Okay.
And so basically, Caligula is the one that I think is the most influential on George, inspirational as far as Mad King Ares and stuff. But this entire history of and he's the perhaps the most famous example of the Praetorian Guard, which you're about to explain what that is, killing the emperor. But there is a long history of it happening. It's kind of ridiculous.
You need the history because it lines up with the Kingsguard, because the Kingsguard, just like the Praetorian Guard, this is the creation of an institution. This is why I'm wearing my Guild of Calamitous Intent t-shirt. For this, like the Kingsguard is an institution, the Praetorian Guard is an institution. And it starts with the first emperor of Rome, Caesar Augustus, who before that was Gaius Octavius. Now, I've talked in the past where I've compared Aegon the Conqueror to Alexander the Great. Now we're looking at Aegon the Conqueror as an Augustus figure. Augustus is the first emperor of Rome, just as Aegon the Conqueror is this first Targaryen king. And the Kingsguard is set up under the rule of Aegon. It is because it is brought to him by his sister Visenya. I also mentioned, Augustus's rule begins as a triumvirate with Mark Antony and Marcus Aemilius Lepidus. Aegon, even though Aegon's the king, but he essentially is ruling in sort of a triumvirate with his two sisters. They have a lot of influence on him, and they have dragons. Of course, they do. They have dragons of their own. So you see the narrative beats and how they line up right. So this is the Aegon Augustus connection with the creation of the Kingsguard in general.
And they really were a triumvirate. That'd be a sick video. Targaryen triumvirate.
The dragon has 3 heads. It must have 3 heads.
I dig it. Because, of course, the Valyrians, there's a lot of Roman inspiration and influence on the Valyrians, so that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it starts out, the Kingsguard and the Praetorian Guard, they start out what is their duty? They are tasked with guarding the emperor and the imperial family. So the Praetorian Guard is just a bigger, because the Kingsguard, you only got 7 members. So this is, but I always talk about how George will take ideas and he'll either macro size them or micro size them. Some ideas are writ large and some ideas are writ small. So the Kingsguard is the Praetorian Guard writ small.
Well, there's also the gold cloaks too. I mean, Daemon creates them to serve the king specifically. I mean, they're, mostly the policemen, the cops of King's Landing, but they can be mobilized, for other purposes. But you're mostly right. The Kingsguard is just George taking the Praetorian Guard ideas and condensing them into a tiny little thing that he can work with for his story, essentially.
Yeah, because obviously all 10,000 members of the Praetorian Guard aren't going to be in one palace at the same time. So there's there's sections and squadrons and all of that.
And they're the only ones allowed to wield weapons inside the Imperial City. So it's a little bit like Vastothrak, where no one's allowed to wield weapons. It's, and we see at times like Ares doesn't allow any swords near him except for the Kingsguard and stuff like that. So,
yeah. But then what happens to the Praetorian Guard, and we see this, George plays with this with the Kingsguard, is over time, it becomes corrupt. And we see, like, where we're at now in our current story, right? Like, Aerys, despite being the Mad King, had arguably one of the, as far as renowned knights go, good fighters, one of the best Kingsguard ever. But now we got We got Meryn Trent, Boros Blunt. We got the worst Kingsguard that we've ever had, probably in ages, right? And that is the bloat, that is the corruption, that is the rot. George, I can't wait till George. I'm sure George is going to have a lot of fun when he does Fire and Blood Part 2, and he gets to do Aegon the Fourth, because Aegon Fourth is literally bloat, rot, and corruption, right?
So I think that it's when you mention Meryn Trant and Boros Blunt and all these people, Preston Greenfield and just
all the other no names.
Like Barristan is not wrong when he's like, I could cut through the lot of you with my left hand. Like he's probably not wrong about that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what George is doing is he's giving us these obviously corrupt Kingsguard so that we'll begin to question the institution, and that should eventually lead us to that Jaime quote where he's like, oh yeah, Gerald Hightower, better man than me, all agree. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, these people were enabling the Mad King. Like, they're not good people.
Yeah. And and as they grow and they become more entrenched in the system, they start to wield huge political interference.
Sorry, let me adjust this. I'm trying to make it bigger.
Okay. But yeah, they're notorious for assassinating emperors and appointing new ones, sometimes auctioning the throne to the highest bidder. They act as a secret police, which is it's never a good thing when any ruler has a secret police force.
No, Tim, that's not good. It's very bad.
Never good to have a secret police.
Always a bad sign when you see people, leaders of countries, in creating new police forces so that they don't have to follow the rules, or taking
rounding up their own citizens off the streets and disappearing them.
That can happen. And a lot of times it's like the regular police or army has certain rules, certain controls, and it's like, well, what if I just created a new intelligence agency that have its own rules? Or what if I took, borders and custom agents and turned them into secret police, and then they could do things their own way? So this is definitely something that we've seen. And the SS, in fact, started that way. They started as like a small group that's meant for guarding people, and they got turned into essentially Hitler's private, shock troops or whatever.
Yeah, and that's how you also get like a lot of paramilitary groups and so on. It's forever.
Lots of slippery slopes in there, Tim.
Yeah. Dealer's choice. Take whatever moment in history and whatever group you can apply these standards to. So the recruitment, the members were originally selected from the best soldiers of legions, and then again, that's what the Kingsguard were supposed to be in their origins. Like the requirement was, it didn't matter what family you came from. It was, are you a good fighter? That was literally the only requirement. But again, as time goes on and we see Kingsguard positions are given out as political favors. Rhaenyra, House of the Dragon, when she chooses Criston Cole and Otto Hightower is trying to talk her out of it, right? That's a perfect example of this. Time is the end of everything, because as time goes by, things decay. That is like the natural order. The other big thing was their benefits. They received double the pay of regular legionaries and served shorter terms, so more money for less work. That was the other big reason why people wanted to join the Praetorian Guard. And yeah, all of this elite status, and they'll have this for about a little under 300 years that the Praetorian Guard will last from its inception till its final disbanding under Constantine.
And this is kind of, I made this point in the Jaime video, but like this, the point of all these streamers and banners and things and making it this honorable thing is so that these people will be controllable, because losing this status is something that they're now afraid of. And same thing with the Kingsguard. They're supposed to make it their whole personality. They have nothing else. So breaking their vows becomes this unthinkable thing. And so that's kind of, you can see the similar thing here. Of course, the Praetorian Guard, as you're about to show us, really descended into just out and out bribery. And they became, regular kingmakers. They even auctioned off the office of emperor at one point. Like they literally just auctioned it to the highest bidder.
Yeah, and that's where we get to the next section of their title as kingmakers. And we get this again in House of the Dragon. Criston Cole, he is the kingmaker. And it's due to their proximity of power. So, when you're the bodyguard to the emperor and you're in the room with him and you know his secrets, that's power. Like Varys says, a man's letters are his true power. A man's secrets are his true power. And it's because of this close proximity that they're able to do what they do. And they murder. It's argued how many they actually murdered, but it's debated how many were truly Praetorian Guard and or if others like died from other means. But it's somewhere between 5 and 15 emperors over their 300-year history that they directly murdered.
It's insane. Like we talk about, when is it okay to kill probably not 15 times in the course of like 200 years.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Caligula. Okay, so Caligula, he is the first one that was killed. And this is the whole thing. It's like, oh, the first time you did it, everyone was happy. It was great. But then it's like, so then they just got this idea that they could keep doing that. And so that's the whole thing that I said about Jaime. It's like, I understand if Jaime shouldn't have been allowed to remain in the Kingsguard. I would say not. In fact, I would almost reward him with letting him out of the Kingsguard. And I'm just saying he should have been acknowledged as a hero as opposed to being vilified. But Caligula, he only reigned for 4 years. And it is not certain that everything that was said about him is actually true. Like the famous one, he wanted to make his horse a consul. Some historians have said, that was probably actually he was actually just insulting one of his senators, essentially, by saying, if I would make you a consul, I might as well name my horse, or something like that, right?
It was. Like, he never actually went through with it. The point was, it was an insult to the entire Senate, was basically saying, you guys are so inept, you guys are so terrible, my horse could do a better job. That was the whole reasoning behind it.
However, he was both very cruel and he was very sexually deviant. That is confirmed by multiple sources. And it actually goes back to the emperor before him, who was Tiberius, right?
Mm-hmm. And so, Caligula is essentially raised on the Roman version of Epstein Island.
Yes, that's exactly the comparison I was going to make. Is this so? Tiberius is this corrupt emperor who's not even in Rome. He lives on this little island offshore in a villa, and basically he has underage girls and boys brought to the island. He sexually abuses them and then throws them off a cliff when he's done with them. And it's basically Epstein Island. And this is where Caligula is raised, but only after this guy Tiberius basically murders Caligula's whole family. And then he brings him there as a sort of captive, but he gets to like Caligula because Caligula's into all this perverted shit too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's
this messed idea up, dude. It's messed up.
Because there's this thing that happens where Caligula gets sick. He comes down with a fever. And this is, George plays with his boat, so you take what happened to Aerys at Duskendale. He also does this with Maegor, right? Maegor, after his trial by combat, where 13 men die and he's the only one to live, but then he goes into that coma, and when he wakes up, he's never the same. But the thing is like, it's not like he was some great champion before he got hurt. he was he was a monster to begin with. When he comes back, he's worse, right? And that's the same thing. The Mad King. He wasn't that. He was already having delusions of grandeur before Duskendale, like wanting to build a second wall, wanting to build a white marble city, wanting to bring Dorne to bloom with underground aqueducts,
and
right?
turning Rhaella's ladies into his horse. He was sexually abusive, before Duskendale and stuff. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up, because yes, Caligula, you said it kind of fast. I just want to emphasize it. At first, everyone liked him because Tiberius was the kind of cruel, like he had all these essentially political witch hunts, and he executed a lot of people in cruel ways and stuff. And so when he died and Caligula took over, everyone was thrilled. And Caligula was very popular and personable for the first year or so. Then he had this great illness where he was sick for like a month. And when he came back, apparently he was a different person, in the sense that like the reign of terror began. However, it's important to note that the signs of deviance were already there, because again, the fact that Tiberius liked him kind of proves that, he was into all that messed up stuff on the island. Like that was,
Yeah. And it's the same with, we've mentioned before, more modern, well, not modern, but closer in time to us. The same thing happens with Henry VIII. Henry VIII was a bit of a deviant, but not the worst. But then he took a fall from his horse, had a concussion, and when he recovered from that, he was never the same. And it's after that concussion, that's when he becomes the wife-killing, breaking with the Pope, starting my own church king that we all know.
Yeah, we just we didn't have good physical therapy back in the day or something. I don't know what's up with all this, but it could be an exaggeration of historians, this before and after change and stuff like that. It's a good story point, but whatever the case, he only reigned for 4 years, and eventually he was assassinated by a group of Praetorian guards and also a rival to the throne, right?
Yeah, and Caligula, like, he had his own allusions to grandeur. He demanded that he be referred to as a god. There's the story of him declaring war on Neptune. They stab the water, and then he commands the legions to go pick up seashells. Just like Eris, he had these mad building projects. He did some
and
good
the incest
ones.
too. He famously, like, essentially made his youngest sister queen.
Yep. And then when she dies, and then he takes on another wife, and he has a daughter with her, he names that daughter after his sister because he can't let her go. He also
I couldn't help notice, Tim, that woman that you mentioned, Caligula's wife that he took after his sister died. Her name is Melonia.
Melonia. Oh yeah.
It's one letter off. Just saying. Funny coincidence, that's all. No political points. I'm not making any points there. I'm just pointing it out.
Oh, what else was I going to say?
Yeah,
I know. So the war on Neptune. His building projects. He did some great infrastructure work.
And Melonia, just real quick, Melonia was just as messed up as Caligula. She was into all the deviant shit too, apparently. So
that's why he married her.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons why he married her. Oh,
okay.
He would also host like dinner parties, and if the wife of like a senator or a general caught his eye, the first night, my rights. He would take them off to his bedchambers and then come back with them, and then these guys would just have to sit there and pretend like he didn't just have sex with their wife right then and there while they're all having dinner.
And this to me is confirming, because there are so many Caligula influences on Ares. This to me is another piece of evidence that yes, Ares did sleep with Joanna during the bedding. Mm-hmm. It would be very Caligula-like to have done that.
Yeah, and I keep forgetting it. His building projects, just like the Mad King, like Caligula had some insane building projects that he wanted to do.
Well, he expanded the aqueducts. That was actually the one good thing.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one. But then his pleasure boats and things like that. Those were not necessary. or when he crosses a bridge of boats on a horse, basically to insult a Vestal virgin. Like, the audacity of this man.
That was funny, but also reminded me of the Bridge of Ships in King's Landing too. So, so they kill Caligula. Hooray! But then it just keeps happening. So then, 28 years later, Galba, murdered by the guard after failing to pay them a promised bonus. Then we got a bit of a lull in the Emperor killing. Then it comes back in full force when we get to the year of the 5 emperors. And of those 5, the Praetorian Guard killed 2. Pertinax killed after only 87 days for attempting to enforce strict discipline. So they kill Pertinax, and then they put up this guy, Ditus Julianus, and then they kill Ditus because he doesn't pay the bribe. He promised them a huge payout if they helped him get the throne. Then he refused to pay, so then they kill him. And that phrase, Year of the 5 Emperors, Tim, it reminds me of the Moon of the 3 Kings that happens during the Dance of the Dragons, just as a turn of phrase. But go ahead.
Yeah. And, the War of the 5 Kings. And this will happen again because there will be a Year of the 6 Kings later down the line.
But that too.
So then we get to Caracalla. He's killed by the Praetorian, murdered at the instigation of the prefect, and then he's stabbed by a soldier who was upset because he was denied a promotion. Elagabalus, this one, we've talked about Elagabalus before on stream. He was the one who replaced the chief god, the Roman gods. He put Elagabal.
We like him. He worships the Black Meteor, big Bloodstone Emperor inspiration. Yes.
Yeah. He replaces the gods of Rome with a black stone, but he's killed. He loses favor to his cousin, and there is a time where he is ordered to produce his cousin, and when he does, his cousin Severus Alexander, and the crowds begin to cheer for Severus, he gets jealous and he orders that everyone who cheered for Severus be arrested and killed. And that's when the Praetorian Guard they're like, no, and they kill him instead. And then the last confirmed one that we know for a fact was the Praetorian Guard is Maximinus Thrax, and this is the year of the 6 emperors. Maximinus Thrax is killed by them after his failure to win the civil war against these contenders. Then there's 2 senatorial candidates.
Hang on a second. Let's just pause here for a second. I want to see how much time is between the year of the 5 emperors and the year of the 6 emperors.
45 years.
I mean, I just got to think the political commentators of the day are like, "What are we doing? The year of the 5 emperors was bad enough." And now we're breaking the record. Like, this shows you how out of hand this whole system was.
There's an old guy in this. He's like, I remember the year of the 5 emperors. Like, or someone's dad or someone's granddad was around to remember that one. So we got these. So we have the 3 Gordians, Maximinus, and then these 2 guys, Pupienus and Balbinus. They're the 6 emperors, and Max, Pupienus, and Balbinus. All 3 of them are killed by the Praetorian Guard. The 2 Gordians, they die in battle, and then ultimately it's this Gordian the 3rd who comes out on top. But then we also got some honorable mentions. So Caligula is the first one that we know for a fact the Praetorian Guard killed. But there is rumors that Drusus the Younger may have been killed by them. It's debated whether or not he died of natural causes or if it was a poisoning by his wife and the Praetorian Guard prefect.
And this is where that just made me think of like half of the deaths in Fire and Blood of the different Targaryen kings. Like, well, maybe he died of natural causes, or maybe his son killed him. Who knows?
Yeah. Nero was going to be killed by the Praetorian Guard, but he offed himself before they could reach him. So Commodus, there's a conspiracy launched against him. He's poisoned by his wife. So he comes up with this kill list, and there's 3 on it. One is his mistress, one is the prefect of the Praetorian Guard, and the third is that Praetorian's assistant, like his vice general. So they get wind of this, so they launch a conspiracy. They try to poison him. He pukes it up, but then ultimately he's killed by his wrestling partner, Narcissus, who strangles him while he's in the bathtub.
Some people in the chat are mentioning that the evidence for Tiberius being this big deviant is not necessarily super solid. That kind of goes with every time you talk about this, atrocities and stuff by these kings. Yeah, it's the history is written by the winners thing. So again, when I'm referencing history as points of inspiration for a Song of Ice and Fire characters, it goes without saying. Like, if you want the full story on something like this, you got to go and dig up a video where somebody researched, all the different arguments about, did Tiberius do this? Here's the thing that says he did. Here's the record that says he didn't. This is written 200 years later. It's not that reliable. Like, I can't obviously compress that kind of a thing into this. So apologies to old Tiberius if we're doing him wrong. But that is the story. That is the story of history that we get. So when we talk about what George is being inspired by, it's going to be the stuff that was floating around in the 70s, 80s, and 90s when he was, cooking all this up.
And then the last honorable mention is Severus Alexander, and this is the same kid, that very cousin and successor of Elagabalus, the one that the Praetorian Guard was cheering that made Elagabalus so mad. He's then killed, not by the Praetorian Guard, but by the 22nd Legion. They're angered. He's perceived as weak because he tries to buy off some Germanic tribes after they lose. So it's not the Praetorian Guard that directly kills him, but they allow it to happen. They know the mutiny is going to happen, and yet just that day, right, when Severus is trying to meet with these soldiers who are about to mutiny, no one's on guard duty. Everyone was on break that day. Everyone was out for a coffee and a smoke the day Severus Alexander died.
Yeah, sometimes when you have those sort of plots, you see things like that. Like, oh, the security at the event was strangely lax for some reason, and then something happened. But Tim, if we may, sort of skip through some of this or gloss over this next section here. It's basically a lot more of the same. Is it not? It just kind of gets worse.
It just got 50-year period of anarchy, 26 emperors in a 50-year period. They're like ruling for 2 years at the most. And it's the final nail in the coffin, because at this point the Praetorian Guard it's too much, man. It's too much. This needs to end. And it finally does. Eventually we reach 284. This is like these are the death knells. Diocletian.
Wasn't there a couple times when people like killed everyone in the Praetorian Guard and replaced them?
Yeah, and there were a number of attempts to disband the Praetorian Guard before the final disbandment, and yet they always find a way to just weasel their way back. But the final one happens when with Diocletian, because Diocletian, when he becomes emperor, he's not even ruling from Rome anymore. This is the split. Rome splits into 4. And this is the build. We won't get the final split into the Eastern and into the Byzantine Empire and the Western Roman Empire for another century. But this is like the separation before the divorce, right? Is Diocletian. He doesn't even rule from Rome anymore. He's out in the Eastern provinces ruling. So he really brings down the Praetorian Guard. They lose a lot of their status because the whole point of them was they were supposed to be the household guard to the emperor in Rome, but the emperor is no longer in Rome, so they're no longer needed. And they make one final ditch effort by attaching themselves to Maxentius. Maxentius is the final emperor to rule directly from Rome, but Maxentius is defeated by Constantine at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, and that's when Constantine finally puts an end to this and completely disbands them.
And yeah, I would love to see the Kingsguard disbanded. They suck, or at least redone, torn down to the studs, rebuilt from the ground up. And so then, what do we got here now? This is the Ottoman version of the same type of thing, and it's called the commissary.
This is the Janissaries.
Janissary.
This is another.
That's different.
So this is a more modern Praetorian Guard, because this is more in the time periods that George would be writing these stories, is when the Janissaries become a thing. It's like the Ottoman Turks looked at Roman history, saw everything the Praetorian Guard was doing, is like, you know what, we can do this too. So they create their own. But the Janissaries are actually more, they're more the building blocks of the Unsullied than anything.
I see that. Yeah, child slave soldiers.
Incorporated the fame for internal cohesion. They're usually boys who were captured in war or sold. Christian boys from the Balkans. They're forcibly converted to Islam. They're called gilmen. I threw that in there because anytime I can make a squisher connection, I'm gonna. But the term for them is gilmen, and it means boy servant or boy soldier. So soldier boy off in it, oh, watch me crank it, watch me roll, watch me off this janissary, gonna kill the sultan, oh. And they basically become like the Praetorian Guard. As time goes on, they just get bloated, and the rules become lax, and people are able to buy their way into being a janissary because of the benefits. And because they don't want to lose their benefits, they become sultan makers in their own right. They can make or break sultans, and they become a reactionary force. And we get all of these moments of the janissaries, who are supposed to be the sultan's bodyguards, the sultan's private army, overthrowing and killing a whole bunch of sultans.
And I noticed they're forbidden to marry until the age of 40, so similar to the Kingsguard in that vow of celibacy. Again, just to make sure that your life is wholly dedicated to this identity so that you can never violate it. And yeah, it's civilians buying their way into it. And you see that with the whole Kingsguard, like who's going to be on the Kingsguard. John Connington's like, well, we've got to do some political favors and, backroom deals and stuff. So leave some of those slots open.
Yeah. And this is what we see. So the janissaries, they revolt a lot. And it's always, they become a reactionary force because the revolts are always in response to the Sultan either trying to modernize the army or just trying to rein them in, right? And just sort of quell some of these excesses. So we get things like the Beyler Bay event. They execute a bunch of officials for devaluation in currency. They depose Sultan Osman II when he tries to curb their power. They just overthrow him. There's the two Edirne incidences. Sultan Mustafa II, he is overthrown. His replacement is weakened through a structure called accession payment. And this is where the Sultan now has to bribe the janissaries to continue calling him the Sultan. He essentially becomes Sultan in name only.
So it's the same thing that happened, yeah.
Yeah. The prisoners are running the jail at this point, essentially is what's happening. The second Edirne incident, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but yeah, Sultan Selim III, he tries to reform the army with more modern Western standards. And this is happening a lot. Like Japan tried to do the same thing, and the samurai reacted the same way. You try to bring in modernization efforts, but then the janissaries will see this as an insult to tradition and values. When really, though, they're afraid that they're going to lose their lucrative positions. They frame it in the context of tradition and value and order, and that the Sultan is a traitor. He's been corrupted by Western imperialists and all that. Not like that doesn't happen in the current day. That never happens. But yeah, so faced with the threat of civil war, Selim is forced to disband his new army. And even after that, they still dethrone him. They overthrow him and imprison him and replace him with their own guy. And then that all finally comes to an end when finally...
That's kind of like when you let these people overthrow somebody so you can be in charge, and then they overthrow you. That's kind of like running away with somebody when you're both cheating on somebody else and thinking that you're going to be loyal to each other, right? It's kind of like that, only much worse.
It's I've talked about like what I call the big stupid game, which is it's always the enemy of my enemy is my friend, when the reality is the enemy of my enemy is tomorrow's enemy. Like,
Sure.
just because they're, yeah, it's like, oh, we'll just give these guys in Arabia some guns and they'll overthrow the Russians and they'll fight off the Russians, but nothing to worry about. They're always going to be bros. There's no downside to this. This is never going to come back and hurt us.
Tim, there's someone in my... Sorry, go ahead.
I said the big stupid game happens over and over and over. Now, here we are, present day, right? 195 sovereign nations, 60 of them are in some form of open warfare. So it's like, again, dealer's choice. Take your pick. Where do you want to apply all these things? And you see it happens to this day. It never ends. It's the constant repeating. All that changes are the names and the dates.
Yes, we've been avoiding overt parallels to modern politics, but obviously they're sitting right there. We're sort of poking at them with jokes here. There's somebody in my chat, Tim, called Reading Rhaegar. He says, "Don't let your wife get in the way of finding your winter rose."
Well, if your wife comes from a culture that's cool with it, supposedly, we never get Elia's actual feelings on this. Like, just because she's Dornish doesn't mean that she's instantly okay with paramours.
So apparently George told the artist in the calendar version of this to draw Elia with a stiff back, which means that it made her tense. So that kind of implies that she didn't know that Rhaegar was going to do that. And that's another one where I was kind of trying to give Rhaegar the benefit of the doubt. But like, oh, well, he was talking about the prince that was promised in front of Elia, so she must have been looped into all his plans. And clearly she would have been looped into some of them. But she may not have known that Rhaegar was going to do that at the tourney.
And I mean, even Oberyn, like Oberyn says, and you know, Oberyn's one for paramours himself, but even he said, when he says like Rhaegar rode past his own wife, he says it with such spite, like it really makes it like Elia personally may not have been, probably wasn't okay with it.
Yeah, we certainly can't assume that. Yeah, so this quote from Yuri Orlov is great. "Every faction in Africa calls themselves by these noble names. Liberation this, patriotic that, democratic republic of something or other. I guess they can't own up to what they usually are, the federation of worse oppressors than the last bunch of oppressors. Often the most barbaric atrocities occur when both combatants proclaim themselves freedom fighters." And that, of course, is true everywhere. It is true in war, and it's true with politics. Just like who gets labeled a terrorist organization and who doesn't, which is a government seizure and which is piracy, things like that. And even political organizations, they'll name themselves all kinds of stuff that are the opposite of what they're actually doing. So, yeah.
Lord of War, second favorite movie. It has Jared Leto in it, but he gets killed. So, okay. First favorite movie is The Death of Stalin. But yeah, Lord of War was actually the thing that made me like really look into a lot of this world of the world of intrigue, right? Of who the politics, not the politics of war, sorry, the economy of war and who makes money and why wars are fueled. And like how he makes a quote like, "The president runs more guns in a day than I do in a year, yet I'm the bad guy," right? And we'll get that sort of same mentality from Jaime when we go really into his character. It's like, oh, I'm the one who's the villain, but if you only knew what was going to happen if I didn't do what I did.
Tell us, Jaime. Tell us what happened. Oh no, you're going to keep it to yourself. I was obviously sort of trying to take Jamie's perspective in the video, but you really do have to take a moment to be like, bro, I know you lost faith in society a while ago and stuff, but you at least could have tried to explain. But no, he didn't. So,
and chat's speaking up on Lord of War, like, It is based on true. Like they rename things. Like, so the character of Andre, who's the president of Liberia, he's based off of real life president Charles Taylor. And Charles Taylor he got his start essentially like a Praetorian Guard. He became president after overthrowing the last president because he was commander of the armed forces. And then
right?
In Liberia. And the guy he overthrew, Samuel Doe, he did the same thing. He overthrew the president who came before him. Samuel Doe had a 10-year reign of brutality and atrocities. Charles Taylor comes in, overthrows him, and then starts a whole new set of even worse brutality and atrocity. The Liberian Civil War is categorized by huge massacres, acts of cannibalism, like the absolute worst things you could imagine. And they do it under the guise of freedom fighters. Like they take on these noble sounding patriotic names, the People's Republic of and it said, like, this is how you end up with something like the People's Democratic Republic of Korea. That is North Korea's official title. But it ain't democratic, it ain't republic, and it sure as hell don't belong to the people.
Yeah. I think like I said, every political action committee, even the laws themselves, like, famously the Clean Skies Act, which enabled a lot more deforestation. Like, what? Anyway, so I wanted to skip through some of this. I didn't want to get into all of this with the Idi Amin, like the Idi Amin thing. Basically, it boils down to they toppled one person, and the guy that took over was much worse. I don't want to go into all that. Do a mini summary of Uganda and all the history there. Yeah.
I just picked Idi because he's the most extreme example, just because of that title. His Excellency.
Well, read the title. The title is exceptional. This is the title that some of these megalomaniac emperors and stuff, like Caligula, declare themselves to be gods in various things. But this truly is something.
So Idi Amin, the Butcher of Uganda, his official title, His Excellency, President for Life, Field Marshal Alhaji Dr. Idi Amin Dada, Victoria Cross, Distinguished Service Order, Military Cross, Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the seas, and conqueror of the British Empire and Africa in general, and Uganda in particular.
I like the in general and in particular. That's great.
But again, Idi Amin, just to sum it up, he became the commander of Uganda's armed forces. He overthrows the president. And what happens? Just 8 years of brutal, repressive atrocity. And that's why because what Jaime did, right, when he kills the Mad King, he actually gets lucky. And that was the point I was trying to get across, is he was lucky that Robert Baratheon wasn't as cruel. Now, Robert Baratheon is like we've said, with Caligula, like, these guys aren't great to begin with. Robert is cruel in his own way. Like, when the bodies of baby Aegon and Rhaena are placed at his feet, and he smiles. But he doesn't have like that visceral cruelty like of that the Mad King has. Jaime got lucky in that because Robert Baratheon potentially could have been worse. And what comes after Robert Baratheon is worse, because we'll get Joffrey, and then we get the War of the Five Kings, and this is paving the way for men like Euron.
Yeah, that's going to be worse for sure. Okay, cool. And then these are the quotes. All right. Okay. Let's see here. And there was just a couple of, you see right here on the outline, GreyWasteTim cooks for a bit. See, I knew what was going to happen, folks. And then there's a couple random Jaime questions to round things out before we get out of here. Would Jaime make the same choice to slay the king at the age he is now? Has he become too old and jaded? Was it just the naive idealism of youth? I think he would make the same choice, and potentially the Cersei killing thing could be to try to prevent Cersei from blowing something up. So it could be like he sees Cersei becoming another Mad King, which obviously Cersei and the Mad King have a lot of parallels. And he's already looked at Cersei burning the Tower of the Hand going, this reminds me of Ares. So Cersei could try to do something mad and cruel in her death, and we could see Jaime do a repeat action. And I think that, yeah, he would do the same thing.
Yeah, I think so too. I think also, but with age, he'd have a better response to whoever walks into the room next. Like, I don't think Jaime in the moment after it happens, and then and that's how Ned Stark finds him. Blood still on his sword, blood on his cloak, sitting on the throne. Jaime most likely is in shock at this point. So when Ned Stark judges him, how does the wolf judge the lion? Jaime probably didn't have a real response for him.
Yeah, I really, like I said, I drilled into it and said that it's got to have something to do with Jaime just giving up on the idea of justice. And so why I plead my case? Because everything is inverted anyways. And that's a little bit in that quote that you had about the white cloak soiling him. The beginning of it is he's talking about
I earned my knighthood. Nothing was given to me. I won a tourney melee at 13 when I was yet a squire. At 15, I rode with Sir Arthur Dane against the Kingswood Brotherhood, and he knighted me on the battlefield. It was that white cloak that soiled me, not the other way around.
No, so it's a different one. Let's see here. If there are gods, why is the world so full of pain and injustice? So this is Jaime sharing a genuine thought. This is him talking to Catelyn. And so he's literally asking her the question that's been haunting him his whole life. Why is the world so full of pain and injustice? Why is everything twisted? And then she says, because of men like you. And so he responds to her judgment by then being flip, and he goes, oh, there are no men like me, there's only me. And so this is a different Jaime speaking here. Like, this is his arrogance as armor, which he brought out essentially because she didn't respond to his actual point, which was, what's your explanation for how twisted the world is? Because he just told her. This is right before he tells her about Brandon, which is why he brings it up. He's like, you're not willing to acknowledge how twisted the world is? Let me tell you a little story about Brandon Stark, And
it's in that same chapter where he says, like, it's in another quote, like, I never eat off another man's trencher. Besides, you're not half so lovely as my sister. I've never lain with any woman but Cersei. In my own way, I have been truer than your Ned ever was. Poor old dead Ned. So who has shit for honor now, I ask you? What was that name of the bastard he fathered? Catelyn took a step forward. Brienne. No, that wasn't it.
Yeah. And so I think basically, Kat is offering a kind of black and white condemnation of Jaime. And she's not totally wrong. However, it's too black and white. It's too simplistic. He's saying, well, look, this didn't start with me. Look at this. And now that we look at all of Jaime's life, you can see how it started with him. You can see why he would say something like this. So it's just two different perspectives. And I think that, Kat is horrified by the story. She's like, oh, it's too horrible to be false. Like, it's got to be true. And so it's part of showing you that, like, yeah, you can judge Jaime, but it's also more complex at the same time. So interesting conversation there for sure.
Yeah. Because these quotes I gathered, they're like Jaime's greatest hits. Like, the world was simpler in those days. Men as well as swords were made of finer steel, or was it only that he had been 15? They were all in their graves now. The Sword of the Morning and the Smiling Knight, the White Bull and Prince Lewin, Sir Oswald Went with his black humor, Ernest John Derry, Simon Toyne and his Kingswood Brotherhood, bluff old Sumner Craighall, and me, that boy I was. When did he die, I wonder? When I donned the white cloak? When I opened Eris's throat? That boy had wanted to be Sir Arthur Dane, but someplace along the way, he had become the Smiling Knight instead.
Yeah, and you could take that quote a lot of ways because, maybe the Smiling Knight is more sympathetic than we realize. Like he's rebelling against the king and the Kingsguard. That doesn't mean he's evil. We don't really have that whole story. Mm-hmm. But I guess he is characterized as mad and cruel. So maybe that's true. Yeah. And the thing is, like, he's looking up to Arthur Dane there, but of course, as we've said, Arthur Dane enabled the Mad King. So yeah, part of it was that he was 15. Exactly right.
Yeah. When he tells Edmure, I've been despised by better men than you.
Yeah, Jaime's full of top tier quotes, basically.
Yeah.
So a little unrelated, but do you feel that Jaime was actually going to follow through on his trebucheting of Edmure's baby? I feel that there is a reading where he's only threatening, and his frustration prior to the moment is due to the reputational hit he knows he'll suffer if his plan works. And so, yeah, I think, I'm not sure if he would have followed through on it, but it obviously was a bit of a bluff. Mm. And he was sort of taking advantage of his dark reputation to use the bluff to rectify the situation. Go ahead.
Yeah, he threatens to go full Tywin, but that doesn't mean he's going to go full Tywin. But given who his father is, he's able to coast on his name. He's able to coast on that legacy to make it, and really make Edmure question, like, he might actually do it because his dad did it. His dad did it, and his dad would have done it again. Like, if Barry hadn't busted Aerys out of Duskendale, Tywin would have made Duskendale another Castamere. He would have done it and not even blinked.
That's Tywin's solution. What would Tywin do? Oh, it says here, war crimes.
War crimes.
So Mermere asks, will Jaime keep having dreams like the one he had while sleeping on the Weirwood stump? What is their purpose? Provide him insight on the next long night. That does open up a good question of, like, what are the old gods doing by taking a hand here? It does imply that Jaime will be needed on the wall to fight the others. I mean, that's his dream, gives him flaming swords, and the Kingsguard that he faces are very other-like. So there's definitely that layer to the dream. And the whole point of the old gods helping Jaime, because it's after that dream that he turns around and goes back to Harrenhal, which is the beginning of his rehabilitation to save Brienne, obviously. So it does seem like the old gods have a purpose for Jaime and are taking a hand in his story.
And Jaime will, when he is headed towards a place with Weirwoods. It depends on where Lady Stoneheart and the Kingswood Brotherhood have set up shop, but are they going to, like, where Beric Dondarrion sat on that throne of Weirwood roots?
Yep. Why is the chat talking about if Jaime didn't push Bran? Oh, like if he hadn't have. Okay. Yeah, how would Robert have... Yeah, Robert may well have killed him and Cersei after learning about the affair. Yeah, totally. That's very much on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And
if
then...
Robert didn't, Stannis would have. Stannis wanted the entire small council head on. He wanted Varys dead. He wanted Littlefinger dead. He wanted Pycelle dead. Stannis wanted everyone there to be heads on pikes.
Stannis would hold a trial because he likes to be lawful. But yes, end result.
It would have been Cregan Stark in the Hour of the Wolf.
I was about to say
trial. It's a show trial.
Hour of the Stannis.
The menace.
And then user David Lightbringer says Ned also chose dishonor by lying about Jon. I was pointing out that Ned did this move in King's Landing, where he falsely confessed to plotting against Robert to try to save Arya and Sansa. But he also let people think that he broke his marriage vows and sired a bastard when he actually didn't. So again, he is accepting personal dishonor to protect the innocent. Similar choice. And that's what Jaime did, obviously, by becoming the Kingslayer. So it's just another layer of irony of Ned not seeing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because that is the thing, like, right? How does the wolf judge the lion? Like, well, Ned, weren't you coming to do the exact same thing that Jaime just did? If Jaime didn't kill the Mad King, wouldn't you have? And then wouldn't that make you the criminal? But no, history is written by the victors, right? If Ned had been the one to kill Aerys, the loyalists would view him as a traitor, but Robert's side would view him as a hero. And how does history dictate that view? Well, you put it in the context of winners and losers.
And I think Robert was attempting to placate the Lannisters, and so he went too far, just giving Jaime a pardon and leaving him in the Kingsguard. He should have taken him off the Kingsguard for killing the king, but then proclaimed him a hero. And that would have been a reward in disguise, because then he becomes the heir to Casterly Rock again. So that's what I think Robert should have done. But Kimberly LeFay asks, do you think Jaime's Weirwood dream implies Bloodraven or Bran's involvement? It could imply Bloodraven's involvement, but it's hard to say how separate the Old Gods Collective and Bloodraven are. Who's running that show? So you kind of believe what you want to believe about that, I guess. But yeah, obviously it could.
And what's also too, it's like, thinking here, Barristan gets the pardon. He remains on the Kingsguard. He fought for the Targaryens. He got a pass, but he's not the one who killed the king. So that's why. So Jaime is the one who has to live with the disgrace. But there were other loyalists, Targaryen loyalists, who were allowed to. I mean, some like Alistair Thorne, they go to the wall. They take the black rather than be killed outright. But Barry got a pass. Jaime doesn't get that same pass.
Well, he got pardoned like Barristan did, but reputationally,
yeah,
he didn't get a pass, because it's like killing the king. It's dishonorable for a Kingsguard. It's like if he had killed the king and then fallen on his own sword, people would remember him as valiant. But because he didn't do that, you know. Well, there you go, Tim. Thank you for being my guest today. Of course, GreyWasteTim's channel is called GreyWasteTim. It is linked in the description below. And what you been working on, Tim?
Still trying to crank out this YT video, and it will have more of this. If you liked what we talked about here with the intrigue and the idea of the palace coup and all of that, there's going to be a lot of that, because I'll be connecting I'll be connecting YT to parallels in our current story of how a YT show could go by comparing it to Romance of the Three Kingdoms and the parallels that story shares with A Song of Ice and Fire. And there is a lot of intrigue. There will be a lot of tropes, right? There will be a lot of themes that you will find very familiar. A breakaway general who establishes a foothold in the north. Sounds familiar. Scheming eunuchs. Sounds familiar. Bankers and merchants and other insiders. There's and then a child king being manipulated by those around him, and his older brother died, and their father was controlled more by his vices than actually ruling the realm. These are all should all sound familiar, and they all happen in Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So the idea is, how do you make a YT show successful? How do you go to that to make that appeal to a wider audience? You have to make connections to the story that they already know, and they are there. I'm just going to connect the dots.
Well, connecting the dots is what we do, Tim. Isn't it?
Yep.
No better feeling in the world than to connect the dots, honestly.
you get a sense of accomplishment from it. Everyone loves a good coloring book.
I just mean that joy of like when things click into place. That satisfaction is just everything. But so there you go. Subscribe to GreyWasteTim. This is next week's video from me, Horn of Jorman, ? What is this thing? The big one that Mance has, that Melisandre burns. I got mad theories about it. So watch out for that one this Tuesday this week. And then next week, I think I might actually have the giant first man, true history of the first men. That video is going to be 1 hour and 45 minutes. And it's not an edited live stream. It's all scripted and produced. So, just ridiculous. Tim, I went ham. I made a friggin' documentary, Tim. It's like a movie. It's almost as long as Avatar. Actually, no, half as long. Avatar is like 3.5 hours. Anyway. All right, folks. So thanks for coming, and I will see you this week with the Jorman video. Spoiler alert, it's a dragon horn. There was a dragon in ancient Westeros, and some first men made a horn out of it, and that's crazy. But I'm going to talk about Jon as a horn blower and all kinds of stuff too. So make sure you check that one out. And I will see you next week. Thank you, Tim, once again. Oh, go ahead.
New trailer for House of the Dragon Season 3 drops tomorrow. There was already a snippet of it, a trailer, sort of a trailer of a trailer. And if you haven't watched it, Gray Area just put out a video today where she went off on it because things are kind of looking bad, depending on how Season 3 might go, based off of this little snippet we got. But full trailer is supposedly coming tomorrow. We'll see what's happening.
I heard some people getting really excited based on seeing the clip. It was from a...
It was a voiceover from Varys from Season 8 about the line of every time a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin.
I heard people talking about the footage of the battle, the gullet looking crazy good.
No, the underlying tone is people are afraid, like, is Ryan Condal gonna make Rhaena out to be a mad queen the way that D&D did with Dany at the end of Game of Thrones?
Rhaenyra already is walking that line anyway. Like, that's in the books. But some people are really sensitive about that quote. It was interpreted wrongly in the show. But I don't know. I don't get worked up about that. We'll see. I think this season's going to be really good. I think that people who are really like hell-bent on it following Fire and Blood are going to be upset. But I'm just really going to enjoy the show for what it is at this point. So we'll see. Anyway, I will probably, if they release a trailer tomorrow, then I will probably make a video about it or do a live stream about it, one or the other. Is that confirmed? Definitely a trailer tomorrow?
That's what it said in the video info for the snippet that they put out today was new trailer tomorrow.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll probably go live and break it down. That's usually what I do, so that I can get you the analysis right away. But look out for that. Yeah, I'm just adjusting to this news, but that's generally what I do. So I'm sure I will do that tomorrow. Yeah, it's going to be like 5 battles this season. I don't see how it could be too bad. It's going to be fun. The battles are great. Rook's Rest was fantastic. So, yeah. All right, guys. Yeah. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow then. Make sure you're subscribed. That's the bottom line. Subscribe to the channel. And if you have phone notifications on, then turn your YouTube notifications on. And you'll get a little dingle. But basically, if you see a trailer, it says Monday at 7:15, like in the morning. I hate it when they put it out in the morning. Damn it, I'm not up at 7:15.
Yeah, what time? And 7:15. What time zone?
Oh, PM. Okay, thank God. All right, well, I'll put an announcement on Discord once we figure out what's going on with it. But yeah, I'll be there for you. So do hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you tomorrow, maybe.